Freaking out, man. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What do all men in power want? More power.
My name is luca-zanna. I was an Italian by birth, and I became an American by choice. Our lives and freedoms are in danger. This is not a drill. If you're listening to this broadcasting, you are the resistance.
All systems go.
Welcome to Love, Guns, and Freedom.
We're not afraid.
I come from a state which has virtually no gun control, and yet I voted to ban certain types of assault weapons. I voted to close the gun show loophole, and I voted for instant background checks. And what I said is that as a nation, we can't continue screaming at each other, or else we've got to find common ground.
Well, what is that? What is that?
Because common ground is, for a start, universal instant background checks. Nobody should have a gun who has a criminal background, who's involved in domestic abuse situations. People should not have guns who are going to hurt other people, who are unstable. And second of all, I believe that we need to make sure that certain types of guns used to kill people exclusively, not for hunting, they should not be sold in the United States of America. And we have a huge loophole now with gun shows that should be eliminated. There may be other things that we have to do. But coming from a rural state, I think I can communicate with folks coming from urban states where guns mean different things than they do in Vermont where it's used for hunting. That's where we've got to go. We don't have to argue with each other and yell at each other. We need a common sense solution.
And that was
I come from
Bernie Sanders. Hi, you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna on KTOX 1340 AM and on United States FM network. Another Sunday, another show. You know, it's kind of sad, I'm telling you. I've been here in this country for about 18 years. 1998, 2016, we are getting there. And, my English still sucks, as you can hear. Getting better, but not as good as I wish. But regardless, I'm here, and I'm doing my best to just try to, pray probably for a miracle, because that's all I can do right now. I sometimes feel kind of hopeless when I see where we are right now in this moment in America. I could never imagine that as options for the American people, we are facing, if you're a Democrat, an alleged criminal. I say alleged because, after all, everybody deserves a trial. Of course, only God knows if she ever going to be indicted. Talking about Hillary Clinton. A woman that I don't even care if she was the saintest of the saints. The fact that you're still voting for somebody that is like a dynasty, We had in this country about two families ruling like an oligarchy for 30 years. The Bushes and the Clinton. And then the Bushes again. Now, what do you want? Against the Clintons? That's insane. Just right there. But regardless, look, situation that I don't even want to think about it. This woman is completely a travesty. If I was a Democrat, I would jump in the lake before I vote for Hillary Clinton. And then, of course, the other options. Other option, what do we have? We have a declared communist that, I don't know. I know it scares the hell out of me. You just heard him right now on guns. The people may say, after all, it's reasonable. What is reasonable? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, Mr. Sanders. First of all, don't tell me which gun should be allowed. The guns have not a hunting purpose for the American people. Yeah, if you want to hunt for fun, whatever, that's fine. I couldn't care less. Yes, the guns are even to kill people. Normally they hurt people. You can kill people with a rock. You don't even need a gun. And as you said, these special guns just made to kill people. But first of all, the purpose of the Second Amendment wasn't about even self-defense, Mr. Sanders. It wasn't about hunting purposes. It was exactly to defend from communist leeches like you, or from fascists like, the Bushes. from tyrants, from tyranny, from enemies, foreign and domestic. That's the purpose of the Second Amendment. Nothing has to do with hunting. And the fact that we already have, by the way, laws that when you go to buy a gun, it's called background check. You go to any type of stores, FFL dealers, and you know very well that if you already have any type of misdemeanor related to domestic violence, you don't get the gun. So don't start to rewrite things that they're stupid, that they're already there. So the fact is, you try to make it like reasonable. By the end of the day, that I'm sorry, because this is sad. If you're a Democrat, you're stuck between a criminal elite like Hillary Clinton and a Marxist like Sanders. That maybe sound little better than Hillary when it comes down to gun control, because she wants completely no guns for anybody. But it's still pathetic. So, and the fact that this guy, unfortunately, it is not like, I'm sorry, as I said, instead of addressing, we may have differences, and that's fine. We have differences on socioeconomics, that's fine. I don't say that we need to agree, of course. I say always, my difference is different from yours. I tell you why. Because when even I disagree, I don't demand and I don't force you to do anything against your will. Instead, if you're a Sanders, or if you're a socialist, or if you're a communist, you always want to force me to do what you want. That's the difference. So socialism, it is not just some sort of, mild word. Socialism, it's the softcore version of a boot on your face. That's what it is. Means castration of a free human being. That's what it is. And that's what Sanders wants. Because at the end of the day, let me put it this way. If he was a true man who really wanted to fight the establishment, who really wanted to try to expose the real evil behind, he would go after the Federal Reserve. Because when you understand that before 1913, the United States Treasury, it didn't need to go to a private cartel of banks, a private institution called Federal Reserve, to print any dollar that they needed, that we need to run the government, and of course also to run all this welfare. It didn't need to do that because we were doing as a sovereign nation. So that's the point. But then, when this Federal Reserve Act was created, every time we go there and we beg for a dollar as a nation, it becomes a dollar of debt. So it becomes a dollar that we had to pay back with the interest. And there was this famous congressional investigation. It was like some sort of a panel of independent, both Democrats and Republicans, under Reagan. I forgot the name of this sort of a report. Anyway, they prove that every dollar that we pay with the income tax, all it does, it goes to pay the interest on the debt to the Federal Reserve. So let's say Sanders, he wants to go crazy, he wants to spend another $10 trillion and put us more in debt, and consequently, we got to all increase our taxes. And I tell you, I saw according to his website, according to different documents directly from his campaign and different independent economists, if Sanders goes through and he can, put his policies in act, every one of us, our income tax is going to go crazy up. Even people that are on minimum wages, okay? That's the bottom line. So that's the point. We have here a system that is based on coercion, is based on forcing the individual to submit, to involuntarily share the fruit of his labor. We're talking about, what if somebody taxes you, 100%? How would you consider yourself? I say a slave. Somebody takes 100% of what I work, I'm just a slave. I got news for you. I think the slaves, they are better off. The slaves are better off because, after all, they don't take any of their money, but Master completely take care of them. Master takes care of them. Instead, us, we are left with a little bit of money. And what happened? We have to use this money to take care of ourselves and survive. So let's say, yes, the government doesn't take yet 100% of our income. But let's say with Sanders, pretty much you can get out of 80%. You could get out of your 80% of your income when you start to put also state taxes and all the other different taxes, like in Italy. More than 78%, 80% goes to the government. So you work for 20%. You can keep only 20% of what you earn. So this is pure evil. Simple as that. Now, yes, you don't want to vote for Hillary. I'm sorry for you. I mean, I'm sorry also for the Republicans, because I don't like any of them, and I'll show it to you. I'm not here to pander to anybody. I just wish that whatever experiment you want to do, you do not need to use and curse other people in your utopistic nightmares, because for me are nightmares. For you, a utopia that the government is going to run everything and everybody's going to be taken care. Guess what? Means somebody else has to have nightmares. Okay? So let me play 1 second about this individual, Sanders, that, at least I tell you, I give him something. He's kind of honest compared to Hillary. That's true. The guy declared himself some sort of a socialist Democrat, and he says your tax is going to go up. So let's play, and let's see what type of nightmare we're going to have if we got him. And then I'll tell you also a little bit about the other side, because, I have no sides but the truth. I have no sides but the United States, its Constitution, its a Bill of Rights, and the principles that were expressed in the Declaration of Independence. Here we go. Mr. Bernie Sanders, the savior of the Democratic Party.
Socialist who wants America to be more like Sweden, Denmark, and Norway.
He wants America to look more like Scandinavia.
That's right. And what's wrong with that?
But is he telling you the truth? In 2014, Sanders endorsed longtime Communist Party supporter Chuy Garcia's bid for the Chicago mayoralty. Sanders spoke alongside Scott Marshall, a leader of the Chicago Communist Party. 1985, while serving as mayor of Burlington, Vermont, Bernie Sanders celebrated the 6th anniversary of the Marxist Sandinista takeover of Nicaragua with pro-Cuban leader Daniel Ortega. He also traveled to communist Cuba, later praising Fidel Castro for his wonderful government-run healthcare.
Just because Ronald Reagan dislikes these people does not mean to say that the people in their own nations feel the same way.
In 1988, Sanders and his new bride honeymooned in the former Soviet Union, where they negotiated to make Burlington a sister city of Yaroslavl, a city less than 160 miles from Moscow. The following year, Bernie Sanders addressed the 10th anniversary celebrations of the Communist Party-controlled U.S. Peace Council, the American affiliate of the Soviet-dominated World Peace Council. Sanders spoke alongside such democratic socialists as Decima Williams from Grenadian President Morris Bishop's pro-Castro New Dual movement, and Zedi Terzi, a representative of Yasser Arafat's terrorist Palestine Liberation Organization. In his first congressional race, Bernie Sanders received the endorsement of journalism icon I.F. Stone. Stone was at the time a supporter of America's largest Marxist organization, Democratic Socialists of America. Stone praised Sanders for his pragmatic socialism. Stone would later be identified as a former long-time Soviet spy. Democratic Socialists of America support the theories of Karl Marx, Italian Communist Party leader Antonio Gramsci, and call for the complete government control of all business. Bernie Sanders has worked with Democratic Socialists of America for decades. They even funded and supported his first successful Senate race in 2006. A prominent Sanders supporter is Washington, D.C. Democratic Socialists of America leader Kurt Stand. Stand was recently released from a federal penitentiary after serving a 17-year sentence for spying on America for the former Soviet Union and Communist East Germany. Democratic Socialists of America are now effectively running Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, but the Marxists have deliberately tried to hide this from the American public. Socialists will always try to deceive you to get your support.
We are not communists.
Will you let Bernie Sanders fool you?
Okay, that was a nice little clip. By the way, I went to double check and verify all these details, information. I don't just play a little clip because it sounds great. Okay? I have really no sides. I mean, as I said, I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat. I just don't want to be a slave. That's the bottom line. I don't want to be a slave of the Republicans. I don't want to be a slave of the Democrats. I want to be a free human being. I would like to respect everybody, but I also would like that be respected. I don't want to be forced into sharing things against my will. And let me give you a little premise here. I had on my show this show is recorded, okay? Something very strange happened. I had my good friend Ronald O'Donnell just 1 hour before. We were having a great time, great interview, and even some disagreement because I know that he supports, or at least he prefers, between Hillary, is a Democrat, Ronald, of course, running also for California State Senate. But, he does not support Hillary, and he supports Sanders. And we were trying to have a conversation. We were talking about serious stuff, talking about banks, Federal Reserve, and things like I'm saying right now. And I want it back on the show. I want Ronald back. But the problem is something happened. Out of the blue, my computer started to freeze, started to freak out, started to talk about some very interesting topics. And strangely, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy, but for sure was a great timing, be sarcastic. And everything, all the file was erased. It took me 1 hour to go back online. Okay? So that's strange, all I can say. Same time, I would like to say, let's think for a moment where we are right now in America in 2016. We have right now a good 40% at least of the country, or maybe even 50, I don't know, we will see, who's voting for or supporting for a declared communist. Why it really freaks me out, this? Because when I think what I left in Italy behind, where the government pretty much has control of all your life, your business, regulations, taxation. As I said, in Italy now, you're going down to about more than 82.7% of your income goes to taxes. You are a slave. As I said, I rather sometimes to be a slave so I don't get anything. I work for free. But, at least master is supposed to take care of you completely. Instead, you're screwed because you have to also fence for yourself, pay for your rent, your car, whatever type of locomotion, your clothing, and your health. You think you have free health. Guess what? In Italy, you die. If you really have some serious disease and you go through the public health care that you paid with your taxes, you die. You wait probably 8-9 months before you get a real special check if you have a cancer, for example, okay? So just to give you an idea where we are, I don't want to go back there. And that's why the difference, the difference, I wish you happy, and the difference between me and people like me and you who want to vote for people like Sanders. I wish you the best. I want you happy. I want you can create your own dreams or your own nightmares, your own utopia, whatever you want to call it. You want to have socialism, you want to screw each other in the back. I don't care. But don't do it with me. That's exactly, you see, how totalitarian you are. You want to impose your system, and to impose your system on others, you need others. Somebody, after all, the government doesn't create anything. It doesn't give you any money because they make him from magic. Yes, they make him from magic. It's called the Federal Reserve. But guess what? Then, exactly why we have the income tax. And that's why I'm so mad at Sanders, because if it was a real person for the people, even with his own socialistic/fascist, because remember, the fascism or the Nazi, they were national socialists. That's what they were. Philosophies or ideology, the first thing he should do, he should abolish the Federal Reserve. the true masters. Because at that point, yes, we create taxation. I mean, we create, we're looking for revenues. All the welfare programs that he wants to create, all these things that he wants to give away, whatever, at least we don't need to go to a private cartel of banks like the Federal Reserve that is going to charge us the interest. And then we have to pay back this interest with our income tax, exactly what we work for. That's bondage. So you would say, okay, let's go back before pre-1913, before the National Reserve Act. At least he wants to play all these sort of funny games. Let the government print the money, like we used to do before 1913, and we don't need to pay any interest, and we don't need to charge any income tax. It still would be wrong, because after all, the system would collapse. The money would become like, if you print too much, I don't care who you are, especially if you're not backed by gold and silver, it's going to be monopoly money. But at least you don't need to go to jail if you don't want to, be raped in your pocket and redistribute your wealth, your hard work, the result of your work. We're not talking about these people. They don't go after the Rockefeller. They don't go after this real 1.00001%. They go after people like me and you, okay, regular people. So that's very disturbing. If now America is completely surrendering to the idea that socialism, it's a new system to look forward, freaks me out. We didn't come here in overnight. It was a long process. I think it was Nikita Khrushchev who said that during the Cold War. I'm just trying to paraphrase it now. I mean, I read it. I remember it said, don't expect that in America, you're going to have immediately communism. But with small doses of socialism, you're going to wake up. In a couple of generations, it's going to be a communist country. That's where we are. And that's why now I want to say, it is sad. If you look for a moment, you stop for a moment. Everything when you coerce somebody else in something that you want, but maybe they don't want, that's very sad. That's violence. Same story with Social Security. Social Security is supposed to be something voluntary. It's after all, if I work, and these are really my money, don't you dare to tell me how I can spend my money. And if I want to be a bum on the street one day, it's my right. If I want to invest mine privately, it's my right. If I want to give it to a government entity like, the Social Security, and have faith in that, and hopefully I'm going to get my money back with the interest, that you already know now it's a scam. Unfortunately, the money, they are gone. Now they pay as they go. I mean, they don't have any more money because they spent all the money. The money is supposed to be allocated just because you give it to them, to invest them, to give them back to you for your retirement. They stole that money. You know that. But the point, regardless, even if they were the most, great financial planners, don't tell me that I have to give you anything, because these are my money and I'm not your slave. That's the way it should be. So you see, that's exactly what is socialism. Sounds, after all, they make it sound like, it's for the good of the community. It's the good of the group. You're an individual. You have rights. It's your money. It's your work. I believe in charity, but I do not believe in government extortion. Especially, when the mob behind the people gangs together, hide behind the government. And they think just because they have 51% of the votes, they can dictate your life. They can tell you how much money you can keep in your pocket. That's disgusting. But regardless, I want my friend Ron O'Donnell back on the show. I really do. He's a friend, and he has a lot of good points. I think he's a great Democrat. At least he's not afraid to speak up in his own party, so much that, he got a lot of enemies. When you start to mess around with somebody like Clinton, and you start to say things about the banks, and try to create some alternatives to this bank fraud, and talking about the illegal loans, that's serious stuff. So I respect him for that. And it's good, even we don't have maybe exactly the same vision on Second Amendment, but he he understands that we all need to be armed. Every man or woman, and between, I also say, every human being has that right. It's not a privilege, it's a right. That's the bottom line. And you know what? If Sanders said at the end of that clip, in this little original clip, I didn't find it, but I know that according to Ronald told me that the states can regulate according to their different environment and reality. But the Second Amendment, I disagree. Because the states have no business to regulate any of our Bill of Rights. They have no business to regulate our First Amendment. They have no business to regulate our Fourth Amendment. And the Second Amendment is no less, no more than all the other Bill of Rights. So that's where we disagree. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. If a freaking immigrant like myself, that still speaks sometimes like a wop, understand that concept, I demand from an American-born citizen that's pretty much easy concept, okay? So that's what I'm trying to say. Now, that's from the Democratic Party side. You see how screwed you are, my dear friends? I wish there was somebody like Kennedy. Not what the people can do, not what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. That sounds like almost a Tea Party person. Of course, he wasn't perfect. A lot of things he did I didn't like. But you know what? This guy was a patriot. Compared to these Democrats today, he was, my gosh, was this Captain America. Don't forget the executive order. I think it was 11,000. Just 2 weeks before he was murdered, assassinated, whatever you want to call it, his executive order was pretty much to put out of business the Federal Reserve and for the United States Treasury to take control back of our currency. That's probably something that they don't want to talk about that much, huh? But that's my point. Now, let's talk about the Republican side. I don't know what to tell you. I'm freaking out there, too. Don't you want to hear the word Bush? I would puke. I would rather to vote for a coyote or for a rattlesnake before I vote for anybody connected to the Bush family. Let me spell it out. As I said before for Clinton, we don't need to live. Are we living in a dynasty here, in some sort of, the blue blood families like in England? We have two families for 30 years ruling this country. That's insane. Just because of that. Then, of course, he's an idiot. Number two, it's a New World Order puppet. And then, of course, you have open borders, and you have Common Core, and you have gun control, and you have it's just another puppet in the hands of this big mega pack of international bankers and New World Order elite. That's what it is. So, forget about the Bushes. I don't even want to mention the name, what is the fat pig from New Jersey? Forgot. Chris Christie. Oh my God. I have, I don't even want to waste my breath on that, okay? Seriously. Marco Rubio, you're kidding me, right? Seriously, you're kidding me. The guy is a McCain in training, okay? Everything you can hate about the Republican establishment, it's there. On top, he's a liar jackass. Because, when he was running for Senate, started to sound like Mr. Tea Party. And then, of course, open borders and amnesty and all these unconstitutional acts that you can imagine. TPP, a travesty. Illegal wars, Syria. National Defense Authorization Act, spying on American people. This guy is a complete disaster. Then we go back up a little bit, and what we have? This senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, and we have the business guy, Donald Trump. Senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, there is so much to say, I'm telling you. I don't even want to go into the fact that maybe we should investigate if it's really, according to our Constitution, a legal citizen to be able to meet the requirement to be a president. I know we already had for 8 years almost a Kenyan. I know this pretty much now everybody can become a president, I guess, after Obama. Even a Martian from Mars, I guess. At this point, if you still believe in the Constitution, we got to really get deep into that. And there are a lot of different scholars. I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I don't want to spend now much time on this show. I just say start to look into that. Number one, But more important, we got to start looking really what it does if you really believe. Well, how do you define freedom? How do you define Constitution? Yes, compared to, if I had to put Ted Cruz compared to Sanders, well, Sanders for me, it's like a declared communist. There's not much to talk. I have a few things I may agree with Cruz, Second Amendment is really good. That part I give him to him. For the rest, it's a disaster. I don't want to talk much about him. Now, I say everybody would have some sort of concern. I mean, that's the normal question to do. And, of course, if you don't agree with this situation, but I tell you briefly what I really think we have a problem here. First of all, this man doesn't even mention ever the Constitution. It's all a business deal. It's all a deal. It's a deal because he knows how to do deals. You know what? Yes or no? Yes, I believe we need people in our government who understand how to pay bills, how to run a business. That part is true. We don't need more lawyers. We don't need more bureaucrats. We need people that understand how to save money, how to make money, because the government, after all, doesn't make any really money besides stealing the money from other people. Instead, so we need to keep this government in a balance. That part, I completely respect that. But the reality is that we must listen to the words and look at the actions and the record of everybody, including Trump. Yes, he has no voting record because he never was elected. But, he's been still on the record with wars and also actions. Let's play 1 second this little segment, and seriously, if you are a Trump supporter, I'm sorry. I wish this man was exactly what he says now. At least 50%, as I said. But there's a lot of things I'm not even sure about the 50%. So all I can say, I know that I wish I had more solutions, but the first solution we need to find is to be honest with ourselves. We cannot not live in illusion. We cannot live in illusion just because the reality sucks. Sometimes it's better to face a reality that sucks and try to live accordingly and try to make plans. Anyway, let me shut up. Let's play a little bit some different part and clips from Mr. Donald Trump, okay? So you tell me what you think. Stay here. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna. Here we go. This is exactly out of his mouth.
Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say.
Universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody.
Who pays for it?
The government's going to pay for it. The government's going to pay for it.
This tax would raise approximately $5.7 trillion.
In many cases, I probably identify more as a Democrat.
I hate the concept of guns. I'm not in favor of it.
Why are you joining the Reform Party?
I really believe the Republicans are just too crazy right. I mean, hey, I lived in New York City and Manhattan all my life, okay? So, my views are a little bit different than if I lived in Iowa, perhaps.
Partial birth abortion. Would President Trump ban partial birth abortion?
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice.
But you would not ban it?
No.
Or ban partial birth abortion?
No, I would. I am pro-choice in every respect. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say.
Who do you think would be the best qualified to make a deal with Iran?
Hillary's always surrounded herself with very good people. I think Hillary would do a good job.
Make a deal with Iran.
Well, I think Hillary would do a good job.
Nancy Pelosi, the speaker.
And I'm very impressed by her. I think she's a very impressive person. I like her a lot. She was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
So I thought he did a great job tonight. I thought he was strong and smart, and it looks like we have somebody that knows what he's doing. And it's a strong guy who really knows what he wants, and this is what we need.
Hillary's a great friend of mine. Her husband is a great friend of mine. I think Hillary is going to take it, and I think Hillary is very, very capable. I'm very pro-choice, a liberal in health care.
Universal health coverage.
I like universal. As far as single payer, it works in Canada. It works incredibly well in Scotland. It just seems that the economy does better under the Democrats than the Republicans.
Donald Trump and I both agree that there ought to be more taxation.
What do you think of eminent domain?
I think it's a wonderful thing. I'll be honest with you.
For people that have been here for years, that have, been hard workers, have good jobs, are supporting a family, it's very, very tough to just say, you have to leave, get out. How do you throw somebody out that's lived in this country for 20 years? You just can't throw everybody out.
He was basically a Democrat, and he was supportive of Democrats. He was supportive of a lot of the causes that, I cared about and that people I knew cared about.
As I said, I understand everybody can change and mature and evolve. That's fine. But there are a lot of things here. I mean, what the heck? This is like a miracle. If this is really true, the new Trump, first of all, it's not really that different, some issues. Yeah, now he's talking about it is for the Second Amendment. Before it was for gun control. Now supposedly it's pro-life. And he goes around with the Bible and does all these prayers. But before it was for partial birth control. Now it's for independent, new type of privatization or whatever of the healthcare. Before it was for this mandate government healthcare. That is a great thing. But of course, I'm sure, how does he know? He has billions. You think he goes to the public hospital? Like people in Italy or in Canada? Seriously. And now he's against illegal aliens. He wants to build a wall and deport them all. But before said, no, how can we deport those? So where to believe? Let's be honest here. One thing I know, though, that even things they're saying now, if you believe in a constitution, if you believe in free market, we have a serious problem. When he wants to keep this sort of a corporate welfare with the ethanol, subsidizing with our tax dollar an industry that in a real free market would have no really reason to exist. First of all, it's an inferior product. Ethanol for your car is bad for your engine, destroys everything. Then it's really the most insulting thing to intelligence. It takes more than 3 gallons to produce 4 gallons. 3 gallons of regular gas to produce 4 gallons of ethanol gas. And then, of course, let's not forget our food is going to go up. Because if you start to burn and use for oil, for your car, for gas, corn, guess what? Corn is not just for humans, but also for the animals that you're going to eat. So everything's going to go up. But, of course, he supports that. That's completely socialist, by the way. Socialism. And many other things. Let's not also forget that this guy never addresses really about the Federal Reserve. He never addresses about the problem of taxation through this criminal act of 1913, the National Federal Reserve Act. He doesn't really even address, for example, these illegal wars. He wants more money for the military, all more war. I mean, it's completely insane. I mean, come on, guys. You really think Trump there is by accident? Not is by accident. And I tell you, there is much, much more. I don't want to go into his little faces and arrogant stuff. That's his character. That's great. Whatever. One thing now seems like he's irritated in the establishment. Maybe. Maybe it's true. Or maybe just an act. Or maybe it's like a wrestling match. We're going to face a real economic hardship. Right now, it already went through the last few years, but now it's going to be much worse. In moment of crisis like that, where people like Hitler or Mussolini will rise. Because people will be desperate. And they will need to find an illusion, some sort of a real hope to save them. And they will follow the cult of personality, like for Obama. I see it now in Trump. It scares the hell out of me. Telling you, I'm sorry. I really wish Trump was everything he said. But there is no everything really I like about him, I must be honest. And I understand, you cannot like everything. Nobody's perfect. There is always going to be like at least something that you don't agree. But there's some basic foundation. We have a problem here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe on this one I may not be accurate. But this guy, when we mention about Snowden that for me is a hero. A guy who was trying to expose government corruption. Trump I don't think he supports Snowden stand. I think he had harsh words. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. I'll put you on the record. But for what I heard, I think I'm right. So I don't know. And, as I said, Trump never really mentions the Constitution. It's all about business. It's all about deal. It's all about he's smart. Or because he has very smart people to do deals. I have rights. That's the deal. You have rights. Every one of us have individual rights. Among those also we have right of property. Property rights. And when it comes down to property rights, we have another problem here. Eminent domain, is tried to reinterpret according to the corporatism. Eminent domain, if you really want to use, the government wants to use your property, must be for a public use. Roads, hospitals, maybe. But not because he wants to build a casino, wants to be a factory. There's always somebody. Hey, don't tell me that crap that he says on TV. Oh, you're going to get paid so well, you're going to make it up. No way. Normally, eminent domain, especially when you have the government between, you're going to get screwed. You're going to get nothing. Okay? So that's the point. No, sorry, can't vote for Trump. Maybe one day if I had to face Trump and Sanders, okay, I may think. But right now I don't have anybody to vote in the primaries. Then we go talk 1 second a little about Ted Cruz. Mr. GMO. Sorry, support GMO. Go check it out. It may be not a big issue for you, but I told you many times about GMO. It is like something's going to kill you. Seriously, it's not a conspiracy. Go check it out. He said that you're anti-science if you do not support GMO. I wonder if his family, his wife, goes shop for Monsanto products or he shops maybe for organic stuff. Then, of course, he's Mr. Anti-Establishment. But then he supports the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, the biggest piece of, it's like a dagger in the heart of our country, our freedom, our sovereignty. It's an international treaty that pretty much is a corporations ruling us. And elected bureaucrats telling us what to do, destroying every type of resemblance of our freedom, of our republic. And I don't call this democracy, it's a republic. Supposed to be a republic. So that's, just in short version, Ted Cruz, just these things. Then, of course, is Mr. Anti-Federal Reserve. But guess what? He skipped the most important vote to audit the Fed. Nobody could find him. He didn't vote on that. And I don't even want to mention what the wife really does for a living. Where does she work? Maybe something we should mention. Should I tell you? Go find out. So that's the options that we have among two parties. And I tell you, it's like an illusion after all. Because you know very well, you can vote all you want. The popular vote doesn't really count that much. The Electoral College, that counts. So, it's almost an illusion. And why you want to create an illusion? The illusion that you can still choose. You're still free to choose. So, after all, they can keep you in control. Because when you believe that you are a slave, you may revolt. But when you believe or you have the illusion that you're free, you're pretty much more easy to control. Now, where am I going with that? We must have a solution. I don't want to just give you the gloom and doom. But before, let me play something I think is kind of funny. Because, as I said, I have no allegiance to none. My only allegiance to America, to its Constitution, Bill of Rights, and to the truth. And God. But that's personal. I don't bring God in public business. It's my personal belief. So I'm here just to tell you an honest process of thinking. All the options that we have, unfortunately, if you believe in the sacred principles of freedom, our Constitution, Bill of Rights, I don't see any candidate that fit that profile. That's the truth. It's very sad. But we still have hope. But let me play 1 second. This is kind of funny because I didn't really pay too much effort to talk about Ted Cruz. And I know this is an old clip when I was a young guy. But guess what? Every one of us, I think you can see your true nature even when you were a child, when you were a baby. I wasn't that different from now, honestly, when I was a child. Maybe I was a little more, I don't know. I used to like more candies or stuff like that, but I was still me. So let's listen to Mr. Ted Cruz.
World domination, rule everything. Your aspirations. my aspiration is to, be in a teen tit film like that guy who played Horatio. You know, he was in Malibu Bikini Beach Shop. Well, other than that, take over the world domination, rule everything, rich, powerful, that sort of stuff.
I mean, I don't want to just go, probably say, it's a young guy, whatever. But you know what? I don't know what to tell you. World domination. This guy sounds already like a control freak to me. So anyway, guys, these are the bad news. Now let me give you the good news. The good news that, first of all, there is an awakening. Not just in America. I believe there is an awakening worldwide. We're understanding that we're living in a matrix, and the elite controlling governments, they control us in the past, but maybe now they're going to face a new reality. They cannot control us anymore if we are not part of this game. At the same time, we need to try to find out a way how we can stop all these plans to completely enslave us in a peaceful way. So I'm telling you, we are coming to this point. All this is the only goal they have is to enslave us within the system. Because when you're part of the system and you believe that, after all, hey, it's the law. You got to put that seatbelt after all. But we just say, I'm not really endangering anybody. Hey, it's the law. Shut up, slave. Put that seatbelt. Because you do not own that body, but the government does. That's how they start to brainwash you. That's how they start to make you completely a slave from small little things like the seatbelt, believe it or not. So the point now, we're at this point. Our options that we've been given, there's not really much difference. And if there is difference, it is just on some issue. But at the end of the day, the real most important topics or matters, nobody touched them. Nobody wants to touch the Federal Reserve. Nobody really wants to touch, things like what's going on really, who controls the government. The Constitution, the way it's supposed to be, they used to be. No. So how can we do that? Well, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I can't. Because honestly, I don't know myself right now. But I tell you something. Don't have that type of illusion and, more important, cult of personality that you think now you found the new hope, the new savior. If you really want to vote for somebody, vote for whatever you want, but don't think that you have found the great solution or the true hero. There are no heroes out there. Maybe somebody can be a little better on something else, somebody else. Maybe they can give us a little bit of a moral break, maybe delay little bit things, but they're all part of the same system. So I don't know. But all I tell you one thing though. Last Sunday we talked about solutions. First hour, county government, county sheriff, county supervisor. 80% of our life starts there, in our community, in our local government. That's, I really believe, when we can do changes. If you want to restore the Constitution, that's where we can start immediately. But at the same time, we need to start to look also at the federal government. And I tell you though, honestly, I don't see any people out there. At the same time, I cannot believe now America is facing a complete declared socialist reality like a Sanders. That's not. I remember when I used to, travel to America as an immigrant. A land before 20 minutes before you land, they give you a little piece of paper for immigration custom where you're not a citizen yet, and you have to fill up that application. And there were a couple of questions, and one of the questions was, "Have you ever been part of the Communist Party? Yes or no?" First of all, very stupid. Let's say yes, are you going to write that stuff? Come on. I don't think nobody's going to write yes. But let's say you write yes. That was a bad thing. Communist Party in America wasn't welcome. Because it was exactly the opposite of all the principles of freedom. So fascism. Yes, you have the freedom of speech to say whatever you want. That's fine. But if your freedom of speech, or even worse, if your ideology, you want to subvert and to enslave others, it's a borderline that we have a little problem here. Yeah, I want to engage everybody. I'm not afraid to talk about, I like to talk with communists, I like to talk with fascists, but at the end of the day, I don't want more communists, I don't want more fascists in this country. I want people to understand the foundations of freedom, respecting each other, not stealing from each other, not coercing other people to do things they don't want to do, specifically, if they do not endanger other people. Okay, that's the bottom line. That's the way America used to be. You can do whatever you want until you're infringing on somebody else's rights. That's the bottom line. So that's the story. I'm kind of disturbed, and I tell you, I want to talk about this in a long time. I'm not really following any type of election debate. I couldn't care less. I like to look at the stars. I like to play with my dogs and cats. Seriously. Why? What is that illusion? Like watching the Super Bowl. I tell you, I must be very honest. You maybe think maybe I'm a social, maybe I'm a freak. I don't care. I've been in this country for 18 years. 18 years of my life, and I had great years. I enjoy my American life. But as much as I consider myself an American, and, I try to learn the English, I try to understand this history, learn the history, the Constitution, all these things. And I love that. But when it comes down to football and the Super Bowl, I am proud to say that in my 18 years since I came here, I never watched a Super Bowl. How can you watch such destruction, such, you watch overpaid monkeys on steroids chasing a ball while our country is being pillaged and our rights are being raped? I don't find that entertaining. That's like during the time of the Romans, panem and circenses, bread and circus. That's all part of the plan to keep you distracted and stupid. Don't get me wrong. If everything was fine and your life is great and we have not to face all this, yeah, do what you want. But now, it's an illusion. It's a distraction. And I don't want to be part. On top, I heard terrible things about the Super Bowl. The half hour, whatever, the entertainment was just a political, Black Panther Party supporter. I mean, that was like some sort of a completely racial division, all, about color. Supposed to be about Americans, not about Black Panthers or White Panthers or KKK or whatever. Supposed to be American. It was all political. It was all completely racist. And I don't want to be part of that. First of all, I don't even have any more cable. It means subscription to any TV. And I love it. So that's the story. That's where we are. All I can say, I pray in a miracle. I do. I still have hope. We must have hope. We cannot give up. And don't get me wrong, you have a lot of friends that they vote for Trump or they vote for Cruz, and I wish them well. And I said, I hope that I am wrong. I really do. I hope Trump is a great guy. I hope if he gets elected, he's going to somehow be the hero that we need. And if I'm wrong, I'm so happy to be wrong. I be happy to be, I don't know, put myself on the square with a sign, I was wrong. Proud of it. Same story for Cruz. I'm telling you, I cannot lie to myself. I look at facts. And the facts, they are not really much full of hope. Same story with, I don't even need to look at facts. I mean, Sanders, oh my God, I got a heart attack just thinking about him. Hillary, I don't even want to go there. I'm going to die before the heart attack. So anyway, that's all I can say. We're going to have a nice second hour with a great guest, great gun instructor, Navy veteran. He has his own school. Going to be about everything about guns, self-defense, tactics, everything we can do. It's going to be a great hour. And then we have the final hour with love. So, hope today you can you were able to put up with me and my rants. Sometimes, I said, I like to talk to you directly. I had during the last 2 years many guests, and I still will have guests. Sometimes I almost challenge myself. I like to challenge myself to be alone in front of this microphone, try to communicate with you. My only goal is not to tell you what to do, but just hope you use your brain. That's all I hope. And as I said, we don't need to agree with everything. All I hope we agree on one thing. We respect each other. We don't steal from each other. We don't force each other to do things that we don't want to do. That would be a great start. And we have one basic thing in common. It's called the Bill of Rights that every human being deserves. Some very basic, unalienable rights. If you're an American, we have a great piece of paper that is not a piece of paper like Bush said, but it's called the United States Constitution. It's a great foundation. Declaration of Independence, great foundation. Maybe not perfect, but they're a great foundation. Better than what many other countries around the world had in the last 5,000 years. All right, don't go away. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna. Don't forget to go to lovegunsfreedom.com. Also, don't forget, if you want to support this show, all you have to do, you go to zanna.us, zanna.us, and you can download any of my songs for just 99 cents. Thank you very much. Don't go away.
He's a songwriter, a poet, a rifleman.
I'm not afraid.
And a constitutional activist.
I'm not afraid.
Italian by birth.
I'm not afraid.
American by choice. Gianluca Zanna.
I'm not afraid.
And his new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom. 16 powerful songs on one CD from the heart of a patriot. For download or to order the CD, go to www.lovegunsfreedom.com. That's www.lovegunsfreedom.com. Lyrics for your mind, music for your heart. Gianluca Zanna's new CD, Love, Guns, and Freedom.
You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna on United States.fm network. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna on United States.fm network. Here we go, guys. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna on KTOX 1340 AM and on United States.fm network. This is the second hour, the hour about guns. Last Sunday, we went through news and some personal rants, and I took a break from guests. I want to bring you the guest because I really believe this show for me, it's a very important role. I don't want to just talk about guns, like what is the latest gun you can buy at the shop. I mean, that's your personal choice. Yeah, at the end of the day, you must have a gun. But for me, the most important weapon is knowledge. First of all, the most important weapon is your brain, your mindset. But the way you're going to find training out there. Because at the end of the day, you can have 1,000 guns sitting in your safe. If you don't have training, it's a waste. Sorry to disappoint you. So I really believe we need to invest in training. And also it's a duty. As a law-abiding citizen, I really believe it's our duty as a gun owners to be proficient, to be safe, and to be the best we can be. Because with freedom comes responsibility. That's the idea. This is also the purpose of the show. So that's why I bring you guests. I brought you different guests that they are really professional, from front side to gun side to, local instructors to international instructors. The idea is to bring you people that I respect and I know that they can offer you something. And I'm not endorsing anybody. The people that I bring you here, they are not guests. They are not sponsors. They are people that I would suggest to a friend at least to take a look. Because I believe that everybody has a different, of course, location where you live. You can live in California, you can live maybe in Nevada or other parts of this United States. So I want to get you different opportunities and also different budgets and also different curriculums. So that's the idea. But I don't care where you go. I hope you can do something to pretty much get the best you can be. Now, today I am very excited because I found this gentleman who is what do you want to call it, an expert? It's more than an expert. Somebody that really saw the action going through in real life. Because he's not just an instructor. Like normally we have many instructors coming from several schools that can teach you the basics and also the advanced things, in the art and science of handgun training or weapons training. This is also a man who served in a Navy, if I well remember, but he can tell you more, and he saw some real life experience about how to defend yourself with small weapons. His name is Omari, and let me get him. Omari Broussard. Are you there, Omari?
I am. How are you?
Very good. First of all, before I go ahead, did I pronounce right your name? I'm very famous to destroy all names
No, you did good. Omari is correct.
Very good, Omari. Please, I would like to, first of all, thank you for the time to be on the show. And I would like to give you the floor to introduce yourself as your professional background, as a professional instructor, and also what is your background before you became an instructor?
Okay, well, for the audience, my name is Omari Broussard. I'm from San Diego, California, is where I grew up. I have a military background. I did 20 years in the military. I just, in fact, as of this recording, I'm about a couple weeks from my 1-year anniversary from retiring from the Navy. Retired as a Navy chief. I started with firearms. First time I shot a gun, I was 10 years old. I started in martial arts since I was 6. Started professionally teaching in the private sector at about, 2006, 2007 is when I started, getting out in the private sector. I was still in the military, and part-time I was teaching across the country. I got a chance to work with, I learned firearms, and I got certified in the combat-focused shooting program, which was designed and developed by Rob Pincus of ICE Training Company. Been certified with them for almost a decade now. I think I'm at about 9 years with ICE Training Company. Started my own company, 10X Defense, in 2012, which is home-based here in California, but, of course, I travel all over the country and teach. Let's see what else. Still have a heavy combatives background. I got my big break in combatives when I was with Blower Tactical Systems and Tony Blower and the Spear System. I got certified in that in 2008. I was teaching with Blower Tactical for about 2-3 years, and then I went more towards the firearm side. So at 10X Defense, we teach both unarmed and armed, but you'll find a lot of my work is done in the firearms world with the pistol and carbine. Also do some consulting. I have a security degree. I have a security management degree, a bachelor's degree, and I'm about, 2 classes away from finishing my master's degree in performance psychology.
Wow.
So that's kind of a brief.
Very good, very good. And this is exactly why I brought you here, because the purpose of the show is to educate, to share information. And I really believe when somebody make the choice to become a gun owner, and we have a great responsibility. And just because we have a gun doesn't mean that we are we are gunfighters, or we can use it in a correct, safe way, and also, let's say, in the right way. So I think education is very important. Now, you bring that you also, beside your background, that when you were in the Navy, now you have your own firearm institute, if you want to call it like that. And I would like to ask, because there are many choices out there, there are many budgets, there are different curriculums. Every one of us, I think every one of the schools have maybe some specific unicity. And I would like to ask you, what really makes difference from other firearm institute, your ex-defense? What do you offer, and what is exactly something you could, let's share, like the spirit of the essence of your school?
10X Defense came about, and really what makes it unique is, number one, when I teach, all our programs start with the worst-case scenario first. That's kind of our context. I think that's really the unique. There's two unique points in any training, in my opinion. One is the instructor, him or herself, right? You have the personality of the instructor and their style that they teach. And then number two is the context in which they're teaching, right? So our context is, how do you train for the worst-case scenario, right? And by the worst-case scenario, I mean something that you didn't know was going to happen, you don't know what's going to happen next, and there's a lethal threat that you may have to deal with. Now, that is 10X Defense. If you can imagine 10X Defense being my interpretation, my style of teaching infused in what Rob Pink has developed as far as counter-ambush training method and combat-focused shooting, right? What else makes this unique is just I would have to say the way I teach, my personality, because I like to, when I teach, I think of it as more of a coach-athlete relationship versus an instructor-shooter-student relationship. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, every student that comes my way, I focus on not just on the course that they come to take. I focus on, okay, how am I going to get them from novice, beginner, and if I had the opportunity to take them to, you know, the highest level that they can reach, and that's really how I teach, right? So it's not, okay, hey, come train with 10X Defense. We're going to do a course, let's say, on home defense, and that's it. I'm always looking 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, right? Because I look no different than a coach that has a football team, right? We're not worried about game one. We have, you know, in a season, we have 16 games to play, plus the playoffs, plus the Super Bowl, right? So that's kind of my philosophy is when people come to train with me, I look at it, you know, hey, not just this one course, because one course isn't going to solve the problem, right? It's multiple courses. It's long-term training. Okay. So that's two things I would say that make 10X Defense unique versus everybody else.
Very good. Now, you know, just because I like to always to give the opportunity to the people, of course, to find out more on their own and do their own research. Give the website where people can at least take a look at the classes, at your curriculum, and at different things. What is the website?
The website is http://10xdefense, all one word, .com.
Perfect.
And
okay.
They can also Google my name, Omari Broussard, and you'll see 10X Defense pop up. We're also on Facebook, so if you're on the Facebook and do just type in 10X Defense, 10X Defense, all one word, you'll find our Facebook page.
Very good. Now, little bit, because you offer different types of classes, from handgun to carabine. So if you can give, we don't need to go through all the classes, but let's say there are probably, I'm sure what you call maybe the basic most, let's say the foundation classes that you would suggest to the average gun owner who's really serious in trying to improve himself and to try to better himself. What are the two classes that you would suggest for somebody that already has been shooting guns but needs some serious training and want to be dedicated himself?
Okay, in that situation, if they've been shooting, I would recommend our 1-day or 2-day combat-focused shooting program, because the combat-focused shooting program that we teach has the fundamentals, right? The principles and core concepts of pretty much all courses that I teach. So that's what I would recommend. At least a 1-day is good, because in a 1-day course we do about, 500 rounds. It's a good 8 hours. Our 2-day is what I recommend for most people, because it's 16 hours. We shoot about 12 rounds of handgun to really just get a good immersion of the course. So that's what I would recommend. And that course is actually taught not just by my company, but there's a number of certified instructors across the country. So I always promote that, hey, if you can't get to me, just do a search for, we actually have a website, combatfocusedshooting.com, and you'll find, my peers and guys that I've mentored and my friends teaching it across the country.
Okay. And just to have an idea, for example, for the 2-day class, what type of budget are we talking about for the fees?
So, normally normally ranges around $400 to $500, and then you're going to need to bring about 1,200 rounds of ammo, handgun, 3 magazines if you have a double stack, 5 magazines if you have a single stack. You're in for a lot of shooting.
Okay. And now questions, I know that you're I know that you're in San Diego, California. Do you have like your own range facility, or you go through some other ranges?
We actually go through a couple other ranges. Normally, a bulk of our courses are taught at Angeles Shooting Range, which is in the LA area. I'm in Arizona twice, 2 or 3 times a year. Actually, I'm looking at possibly moving to Arizona after I finish school. So Arizona at Ben Avery, I'm there a couple times a year. And then in the Southern California area, Angeles Shooting Range, because Angeles Shooting Range is a great facility.
No, I was thinking about it, you are I'm sorry to say that, in the wrong place for the right type of activity. It's very rough to the politicians and the mindset, it's just starting from what type of gun you can bring, the magazine that you're limited with, there are a lot of different things. Arizona would be probably the heaven, and it is heaven compared to many other parts of the world. But in general, question is, since it's something I didn't put as a question, but just come out of my mind, since, you live in that state, and if it's not too personal, what type of handgun normally you carry or if you carry, or whatever type of gun you train, considering that you have the limitation of the 10 rounds magazine there?
Well, I normally carry a Glock 19. Right, really enjoy the Glock 19. That's probably my go-to. I also have a Smith & Wesson M&P, and then I just purchased a M&P Shield. Those are the main 3. I played with the XD. That'd probably be like my 3rd choice, but I'm a big Glock 19 fan.
Speaking about the Glock 19, I was reading the news. You confirm it, because sometimes, on the internet you find a lot of things that they're not accurate. I heard that the Navy SEALs used to have like the main gun, the main handgun was the 6.226, and now they went to the Glock 19. Is that true? That maybe you have any other confirmation about it? We're talking about, and I've been asked this question before. There is when you look at military across the board, especially operations, there is no one handgun or one carbine that they use, right? They're going to use whatever's best for whatever job they're doing, right? So I can neither confirm nor deny. I don't know for sure, but you can. We're talking about a special operations force that works in different environments, right? They're going to require different tools for different jobs. So, it could be the SIG. It could be, if you look through history, they've used anything from a 22 all the way up to, 45s, depending on what the job is. So I don't think when we talk about, and it's funny because, these things, everybody's talking it but the Navy SEALs themselves. So we don't know what they're going to use. We don't know what job they're going to be doing. It's a big marketing thing too. I understand what you're saying, because at the end of the day, they get every gun they need, every gun they want to have access, they can have access to. But at the same time, for example, was for the infantry, for the army, was the Beretta for many years, and probably still is. It's some sort of something that the company's behind. Of course, they have a lot of great benefits to reap when they can say, by the way, now the new contract that we have with the Navy, or that's, for example, Glock. That's a huge, strong marketing point. Honestly, I love the Glock myself very much, and for many reasons. I'm not going to go too much details, but if I had to pick a gun that it's simple, or at least simpler to operate, and under stress, you have less things to worry and less parts to worry. I think the Glock 19, I don't know, even from the environment, I have to think, I don't know, it's something seems more for the extreme situation, honestly. And I like the 6 too. They're great, but I don't know. Seems like it would be a good choice too. Now, question is, I would like to ask you a couple basic, more technical questions. For example, the idea is this, of course. We are here on the radio. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom, and my guest is Omari Broussard. This is not like a class. We're not going to give you any type of advices. This is not anything like that. If you're driving, keep driving, okay? Don't start to practice with your handgun, even especially if you are in Arizona. You can carry a handgun probably in your car. But it's about give you some ideas of things that can help you out to find more training. For example, the first thing, in home defense handgun, you have this probably the basic home defense handgun, I see. What is the basic advices that you would give to a gun owner regarding this type of topic? I know that there are many things that you touch, but if you had to give a couple things that the people should start to meditate and think in the situation of home defense.
I would say it's more about the strategy versus the tools and the tactics when it comes to home defense. So when I talk about home defense, first thing comes out of my mouth is the 5 things that you need to think about, plan for, and kind of be flexible with. And number 1 is evading, right? So you don't win any badges for chasing down bad guys in your home. So if you can get yourself and your loved ones out safely, that's number 1. Get out of the house. Right. Number 2 is if you can't get out of the house, then you want to get the family mustered together, get everybody barricaded, get everybody armed. And that's, kind of one and the same thing. You want to arm and barricade yourself. And by barricade, that doesn't necessarily mean locking yourself in the closet. What that means is putting obstacles in between you and the danger. Right. And then the next thing is to make contact. Get on the phone, call 911. Make contact with the person in the home if you can, without giving away your position. But if you have a chance to tell the bad guy, hey, you do have a firearm, you're willing to use it, tell them to get out of the house, that's good. Get on the phone with 911. Keep the phone on because obviously 911 calls are recorded. So even if you drop the phone, you never want to turn the phone off until police arrive. So we have evade, arm, barricade, make contact, and if you must, then you want to respond appropriately, and that is up to using deadly force if necessary, right? But someone taking your TV out of your home doesn't necessarily warrant deadly force, right? So you have to play with that. That's a judgment call, okay? Exactly. But those are the 5 things. Now, within those 5 things, you have, arm. All right, well, you can arm yourself with a handgun, you can arm yourself with a bat, you can arm yourself with a book, whatever it takes to deal with the problem or whatever you have accessible, right? It doesn't necessarily mean everybody has to rely on the gun. There's a lot of people that don't own guns for home defense. There's a lot of people that, although they own handguns or own, rifles for the home, they're not accessible. They're stored, but they're not staged. And those are 2 different things.
Exactly.
Storing and staging.
And,
so those are the things that I kind of cover in the home defense deal.
Very good, very good. And also another thing, just my little personal humble experience. Sometimes, everybody, of course, we live in different states with different laws and different realities. But if we live, like, for example, in places like Arizona, of course, that we have also a different type of law on how you can defend yourself. We must really be familiar with also the state laws where we live, because, as you said, first of all, regardless where you live, life is precious, and I always say we're not here to take a life, but we're here to save a life. And that's the way I look at this as a gun owner. I don't want to kill anybody. I want just to try to prevent bad people to kill good people. That's the idea. So if we can avoid the confrontation, it's great. At the same time, also, we have some realities, like, for example, I remember when I used to live in California many, many years ago, that you have different set of rules. Like, for example, you must warn first the people, then you must retreat. And, of course, in Arizona, we have a different reality. By the end of the day, if we can avoid that type of, let's say, bloody confrontation, we can give them a way to the rat to get out of the funnel, that would be always better. That would be probably the best thing for everybody. Now, question, don't you think also that many gun owners, especially that people that they are allowed to carry guns regularly, when you have that gun storage in that safe, is always probably a couple minutes away when somebody's trying to kick in through your door, because normally the average door, the average home, is pretty much like a piece of paper. I mean, you can kick it in 2 seconds, it goes down. But I always say, I mean, for me at least, I always carry the gun with me 24/7 in the house, not in changes. And I think the safest place is always on my hip, on my holster. Don't you think it would be probably maybe a good habit to start to carry your gun? Even if you live like in a state like California, okay, that normally you cannot really conceal carry outside without a permit. But maybe in your home, that's your heaven, that's your castle. Start to put your holster and have that gun available in your house. What do you think? Is it something too extreme, maybe?
No, I don't think it's extreme at all. I mean, it's good to have a gun, but it's, when you need it most, you want it, where you can access it. So I think that wherever you spend most of your time in your home, you should have access to your firearm if you need it, right? So whether that's in your bedroom, whether it's, if I'm, even me, if I'm up and about all day and maybe I'm walking around, I'm on my private property, yeah, I'll carry my gun. I mean, it doesn't mean no good if it's not
exactly
there, however, I think the staging part and the accessing part, you just want to be cognizant of who has access to it, right? Obviously, you don't want your kids to have access to it, and any unauthorized persons, right? So, if you are going to carry it on you, great. I mean, no harm, no foul there. I do recommend it be concealed. But then we have tools available so that you can have access to your firearm wherever you're at, whether it's a quick-acting safe in the kitchen, whether it's a quick-acting safe. And by quick-acting safe, I mean, a safe where you press a few buttons and open it, like the gun vault or a number of other ones. You can put a safe in your children's room where you can get to it quickly. There's really no limits to where, they even have the safes that are, I forgot what company it is, but basically they build furniture, right? So that you can access your firearm. So, there's really no limit. At the end of the day, it's the homeowner's choice, but as long as they're doing it safely, and by safely I mean, they're preventing small children or, obviously felons from getting to the gun before they do, it's good to figure that out. If I'm spending all my time in the living room and my firearm spends most of its time in my bedroom, right, that's a pretty good distance during an encounter with the bad guy, right?
Exactly. And also, my personal humble experience, I realized that the safest place that I can keep the gun, it's always on me, because at the end of the day, it's in my holster, and I don't forget it. Nobody can have access unless they knock me down. Okay, that's the idea. And I think also if you have a kids or something like that, it would be probably. And I heard these stories. Even here in Mojave County where we live, like for example, there is just a few days ago there was this lady in Kingman that opened the door and she was assaulted by 3 young men. I'm talking about 16, 17, 18 years old young men. I don't want to call them kids anymore. And they did terrible things to her. And I'm not saying that probably she would have saved the day, but at least she would have a chance if she was trained and their gun that was available on her. Because unfortunately, if she had a gun and the gun was, let's say, in the safe or even in the kitchen, too late. They opening the door, you're already out. So I think, it would be something. People sometimes think I'm a little paranoid, but I look at this like a normal lifestyle. But I like to always carry the gun on me everywhere, but especially in the house. That's the place normally I spend most time. Anyway, let's move on. I would like to ask you a couple extra questions. I heard, by the way, a great interview that you did just a few days ago, I think last week, on a newsletter that I'm a subscriber, and I forgot the name. If you want to if you know the name, remind it. I'm happy you can spread it out. Anyway, it was a great interview about shooting on the move. I think it's a very important skill that unfortunately it is not covered enough by the average gun owner. When they go to the range, they think, okay, I'm shooting at that target. The target is there, doesn't move. I am not moving, and everything is fine. I hit the target. I won. That's not exactly the way real life goes. They shoot back at you. At the same time, they move, and you're supposed to move. I don't want to go through the whole hour through this very important topic, but in few words, or at least in few phrases, like you can articulate, how can we, first of all, simulate this skill, how to train for this skill at the range, and also any type of basic tips how to do it correctly, how to shoot on the move correctly?
So I did, the podcast was on Modern Combat and Survival.
Yes, I remember.
.com. They're an online magazine. And when it comes to shooting on the move, my premise is this. Number one is shooting from a stable platform, which means planted, full extension, is the optimal way, right? So when movement comes in, we're talking about when you recognize that there's a threat, getting off the line of attack, right? Moving laterally, at a minimum one body width to the left or right, while presenting the firearm. And then once you get in a position to shoot, stop and shoot. And then once the problem's over, you need to move on. That's probably the most important time to move, right, is once you recognize the threat. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing what we found is what we call shooting in motion, and this is when you have to use your firearm against a contact threat. And a contact threat we define as a person that has either a stick or a knife and they're coming at you, right? And it's at a distance where you're not close enough to the threat to control the arm limb with the knife or the stick, right? So that's what, like, within one arm's distance, it would make more sense for me to deal with the threat hands-on than going for my gun to avoid a bad tie.
Okay.
And I'm not far enough to where I can, get off the line of attack, fully extend and shoot. So there's this gray area where if I go for my gun, then I'm looking at a bad tie, right? Or I'm just enough far away. And for this distance is going to change, right? A stick or a broom handle is going to have a different distance than a knife. But we're in this gray area to where we actually have to turn our hips away, start running, and then while presenting our firearm, looking at the threat and shooting. And then once the threat stops, then we can stop, right? So that's where we advocate actual shooting and moving. Otherwise, if you look at the other ways shooting and moving is taught, whether it's walking forward, sideways, or backwards, we look at two things, and these are kind of filters for people, right? So the filter is, does moving necessarily make me safer, right? And what's the effect on our balance of speed and precision while we're moving, right? So those are the two things.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And
that's kind of how we look at it.
Very good. And some basics, there are the basic, I already talked about this a few weeks ago, but, you are the expert after all, and I'd like to ask you, the basic way, technique to be able to shoot on the move. How would you, let's say, your body, how would you set up your body, your feet when you're advancing or when you're retreating? There is any special way that you suggest?
So, like I said, the most important time to move is once you recognize the threat. So, the way to train that is you have to imagine, or if you're on the range, let's say you're on a live fire range, you have a training partner, or even if you're at home, you have a training partner, and you have a training, gun, right? Gun that simulates a real one. On the go command, the fire command, the up command, what you first want to do is practice, once you recognize the threat, is moving laterally while you're presenting your gun. So imagine if I'm standing squared up to the target, I hear the go, boom, on the go, I'm going to recognize the threat, and one of the things I'm going to do before I go for the gun, since I'm talking about worst case scenario, is my hands aren't going to go directly to the gun, right? I'm actually going to simulate a startle flinch reaction, which means my hands will come above my waist before it goes to the gun, because that's normally what happens when you're surprised, right? Mm-hmm. And then once I go for my gun, as I'm reaching for my gun, I'm going to start my movement to the left or right. I don't advocate retreating or moving forward because we're dealing with a threat that also has a gun. So retreating from a person that already has a gun doesn't make you any safer, right?
Yes.
So moving backwards, and what I mean by retreating, if somebody's shooting at me and I'm just moving backwards, that doesn't necessarily make me safer. In fact, it could put me in more danger because I can't see what's behind me.
Exactly.
I can only see what's in front of me.
Exactly. Very good. Right. Very good. Yes. And then, of course, the idea also is try to keep your body a little lower, so your center of gravity, you can be on your knees a little bit and try to keep that platform. I used to do a little bit of a, exercise with a little bit of a plastic cup with a little bit of water on my gun, especially if you have a gun like a Glock. Normally you can do that, and be able to walk in some sort of let's say fighting position, that and the glass supposed to be up. That was something for me, was kind of fun, and it helped me out a lot, honestly, when I was doing then range time. Anyway, just some ideas, guys. The idea is that start to think that real world is not going to be shooting at the paper target and you're going to be there sitting and waiting and looking at the stars. The point is the real world is going to be running, trying to escape. So I hope we can all try to find training in simulating the real situations that hopefully we're never going to face. That's pretty much why I want to talk about this. Because I think it's very important when people feel too much cocky or too confident, they think they know something, that's where you're going to get hurt. That's where you go into reality check that probably you weren't that prepared, So that's my goal, is try to always find new ways we can improve. Now, back to the basic ideas of some training ideas. First of all, what is the most important skill for you, according to your curriculum and your experience, that in a civilian gun owner we should have for self-defense situation? Regardless what type of weapon do we have, handgun, shotgun, doesn't matter. It must be a skill that for you suggest we need to focus on.
I think the most important skill, and without going into, I think what I think a lot of people lack the difference between an ability and a skill, so understanding the two. An ability being what you bring to the table naturally, right? And then a skill being something that you have to be taught, and there's different types of skills. So to me, the most important skill is being able to go from reaction mode to response mode, right? So your body, especially during the worst case scenario, your body does things automatically, right? We're going to automatically focus on the target. We're going to automatically lower our center of gravity. If we're surprised, our hands will come automatically to the place where it's going to protect our core and our head first before it goes to our tool. So going from that, right, to transitioning to getting our gun into a place where we can actually use it, right? I think that's the most important skill, because if you look at real-world video, that's where everybody gets hung up, right? Including police officers. It's from, I'm sorry, you might have to bleep this out. It's going from the to, okay, now I got to get to work, right? And that's even in unarmed, right? Going from, okay, please, I don't want to fight, and blah, 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 to, okay, now I got to get work done. That's the most important skill, because you can be the greatest shooter in the world, grandmaster, right? But if you never get out of the reaction stage into the response stage, I don't care how good you are.
Exactly. And that's why I think also the mindset must be already there, and we must already have made our own decisions, because otherwise, if we're still thinking about what we're going to do in that moment, and we didn't make our decisions previously, it's going to be always a second too late just to think about it. What do you think about the color of awareness that probably was, I think Colonel Cooper was the first one to put them together in that scientific way? Do you talk about this type of awareness, different stages of awareness during your classes, your curriculum?
No, I don't. And here's why. I think that there's a lot of things that were created. I mean, there's some timeless principles over time, but I think we've evolved since then, right? So Rob Pincus, it's online. I can send you the link. But he did an article on the evolution of the OODA loop, and instead of the colors of awareness in the OODA loop, what he talks about is observe, react, recognize, and respond.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
So, and then the other half of that is observe, react, improvise. And that's basically how we go throughout life, right? I don't know. I think a lot of people use the color codes as a crutch. Well, I was in white, or I always want to be in a certain color code, right? I always want to be orange, right? And the fact of the matter is, you're going to be whatever you are at the moment right before the bad guy attacks you, right? So I'm going to be focused. If I'm out with my kid, right? I have 6 kids, right? So if I'm out with one of my kids and we're getting ice cream, and I'm in an ice cream shop, and at the moment, right before the attack happens, I'm going to be focused on what kind of ice cream my daughter wants or my son wants. I don't care about anything else. I'm not going to be looking around, looking over my shoulder while I'm trying to choose ice cream. But when that happens, I need to recognize and I need to respond, right? And that comes through training. Recognition comes through training. So the more you train, the more you'll be able to recognize when things are not in its proper place, right?
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
The less you train, then you put yourself in a position to always improvise. So without training, I'm going to have improvisation. With training, I'm going to be more likely to recognize the problem before it happens or as it's happening.
I understand. Interesting.
Right?
That's a good thing.
So now that frees me from whatever color code I'm in, right? It's just, okay, I'm living life. And when something does happen, because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to prepare. And a lot of these theories predicates us on preparedness. And you're not going to be prepared for everything. So once you accept the fact that I'm not going to be prepared for everything, however, the more I train, the quicker I can recognize things and the quicker I can respond. Otherwise, you'll be walking around. You'll never walk forward, because you'll always be looking around.
Exactly. That's interesting, because many curriculums out there, they focus a lot on the different type of color awareness, and this is the first time. And I think there is a lot of good thinking what you just said, because sometimes we focus too much on training just of the awareness. I think it's very important, but at the same time, we don't pay enough attention in training in the moment that we're going to get caught without that type of awareness previously. So it's interesting. I'm glad I asked you that. I wasn't planning to ask you that, but something that came out probably out of my mind right now. Great. Now listen, something personal that you don't have to answer, but I always like to ask that, especially since you're a guy that you didn't just do the instructor as a civilian, but you wore a uniform. I'm sure you went through some situation that probably you had to face some violent realities. In your line of business, did you ever being shot, or did you ever had to shoot somebody? Just curious.
No, I haven't, right? And I tell people all the time, I met with violence way before I got in the military, or, even in the military, I've worked in the law enforcement capacity. I've done some reserve time as a civilian law enforcement. Everything that happened to me violence-wise, or that I saw, or that, I witnessed, was way before I got in the military. I grew up in, the 80s. In San Diego, gang violence was very prevalent. Crack was very prevalent back then. So, a lot of the training that I have now was to deal with that. I got involved in training because, I spent a big part of my childhood, in this environment that if you didn't know how to take care of yourself, you were pretty much a victim, right? There were those that did and those that were victimized by it.
Yeah.
So when I got in the military, one of my biggest things, and I was raised by some guys that were, Vietnam vets, and they always told me, they said, whatever situation you get in, if you have to shoot, you screwed up along the way.
Exactly.
Right? Or if you get shot, you screwed up along the way. You want to be able to deal with problems without, because you can't collect intel from a dead guy.
Exactly.
Right?
That's true.
And as far as the training community as a whole, since we're talking about educating, I like to tell people, the top 1% of the military and law enforcement are involved in jobs where the potential of getting shot at or doing a shooting is very low. Top 1%, right? Now, the 0.1% of that 1% are the ones that actually go do that and do those type of missions for a living. And even then, only 0.1% of them actually get to do it.
Exactly.
Right? So it's very rare to find that combination?
I always ask that just for a reason, not because I always hope to find, of course, that nobody had to go through that type of experience. But sometimes, it's something that people unfortunately idealize through movies or the pop culture. They think, oh, great, you had to shoot somebody. That's a very, I think no matter if you're into the right, if you're a good person, if you're not a scumbag and you're not a psychopath, even if we have to shoot somebody because you had no other choice, I think it's always going to be a scar that's going to stay with you, because after all, it's always another human being. And after all, you always said, maybe I could have avoided that. So, and for me, it's almost a psychological experience that I like to ask to people that to do that type of situation. And I'm not saying that I say, oh, well, you have to do it. You do what you have to do. Sometimes, since I never had to go through that, and I always try to ask, how do you feel after all these years? I have, for example, here people like Chuck, my brain, my gosh, not Chuck Norris, help me out. Oh my gosh. Anyway, one of my guests, probably you know him. It's one of the famous gun instructors, especially from the 70s, 80s, and he's a special forces guy. He's been my guest, and he has his own school too. And anyway, to make story short, and this guy is also a Vietnam vet, okay? So, and he was shot a few times, and he had to shoot some other times. And, I talked to him. Chuck Taylor. You ever heard about Chuck Taylor? Chuck Taylor, check it out. He's also on my website, Love, Guns, and Freedom. Anyway, he's a very interesting guy. He's a former Special Forces, and he created this curriculum through the years of the Combat Master was the first one. But regardless, the guy that has to face some real shooting. And I realized that even in the moment that he came back home and he was happy, he still has something that he wishes probably he didn't have to do. And that's why, I hope that the people listening to the show understand more and more that we are not here to shoot anybody. We try to avoid the shooting, and that's where we win. I think you're right. When you said you failed, something you did wrong through if I had to go to the point that I had to pull the gun out, means I missed something before. I could have avoided that probably. I could have done something better probably, but that's the bottom line. Now, back to the little bit of idea, techniques, and training ideas. I like very much when you talk about counter-ambush strategies for a civilian world. How to mentally prepare for an ambush, ? What to do to avoid one. We're not gonna have the time to do all, but let's say you ambush in the real civilian world, okay? I'm not talking about in the forest or in the military, some situation like in Vietnam or whatever. Like maybe you're driving your car and they try to carjack you. What is the mindset? What would be the tip you would say to the civilian person that wants to prepare to react to an ambush?
So my biggest thing is, like I said, it goes back to what I said earlier as far as going from recognition, understanding that there's going to be natural body's reactions, right? That's number one. Understand that you're going to possibly your hands are going to come up. You're going to, your heart's going to start beating. All these things that happen naturally are going to happen. We have to accept that, right? Number two is we got to get into action as quick as possible, whatever that action is going to be. And for everybody, it's going to be different, right? But we have to understand in our head that, okay, I accept that my body is going to do some things. I'm going to use those things to my advantage and deal with the problem. Right. So number three for me is when we look at violence, right, I believe it's the highest form of human communication, right, because that's really what it is. It's communicating. Yeah. Now, in that highest form of communication, right, the stakes are high. You got to look at it as a problem that needs to be solved, right? So it's no different than, okay, what's 1 + 1? 1 + 1 = 2. Right, so when we get into these situations, we want to be able to, we want to understand that this is a problem that needs to be solved, because I think people get hung up out of the emotion of it, the psychological aspects of it, instead of, okay, this is the problem we need to deal with. And then however you decide to deal with that problem, at that point in time, once it's over, that's how you dealt with it, right? So a lot of times as trainers, we talk about what to do before or what to do during, but a lot of times we fail to help people understand, okay, here's what's going to happen after. Here's what could happen after. Mm-hmm. Right? And a lot of people can suffer long-term psychological damage because they don't necessarily look at how the way they solve the problem as the way that they solve the problem.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I don't want to be too esoteric.
No, I understand. And I remember, we are also, for the listeners out there, sometimes, I have people calling me while they're driving, and he said, can you repeat what he just said? Focus on driving, and this is just something to put you in your mind, things that we may not know, and to find out more about it. Please say one more time your website, because I know that also you have a Facebook page. Maybe people can ask you questions after if they have any type of questions. Go ahead, please. Remind your website.
Absolutely. 10xdefense.com. That's all one word, 10xdefense.com. Same thing, same username on Facebook. And people can reach out to me to my normal Omari Broussard Facebook page. I'm pretty open with that. Just if you have questions, especially, I love answering questions. They can shoot me a message there.
Okay, listen. Speaking about dry practice, speaking about shooting, dry practice training, do you train in that type of environment? Do you do dry practice training? And if you do you have any special routine, any special drills that you do for your regular training?
For dry practice, I'm a big component of skill development in the environment, so I don't do a lot of dry practice with touching and pressing the trigger, right? And the reason I do very little of that is just because that if I'm using my firearm and I'm on the range and I press the trigger and the gun goes click, well, I want to automate the process of getting that gun back up and running, because normally that represents a problem in live fire, right? So for dry practice, I really found myself working on presentation of the firearm from concealed, from different positions. So if you have a rubber training gun, right, or even a SIRT pistol, right, that denotes a different context, then I find I do more dry practice in the handling of the firearm in different positions. Okay. Because not all the time will I end up standing.
Okay, exactly. Very good.
Right, so what I mean is, I'm presenting from the seated position, right? So right now I'm seated in my chair, so if a threat was, to my left or right, could I get my gun in the shooting position from the seated position?
Very good.
Right, so and I'll do that with a training gun. That's where I find myself doing the most dry practice.
Very good. And talking about carry day, everybody carries their gun, but sometimes I see when I go around, especially here in Arizona, that people still can carry open carry. I don't see many spare magazines. Call me, paranoid, but I always like to have at least a couple of spare magazines. Normally what I also carry at the range. Do you carry any spare magazine when you carry your gun?
Yeah, I have a military background, so 1 is none, 2 is 1. Okay. Right. I was a communicator in the military, and we carry radios out in the field. You never carried one battery.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I'm an advocate. At least one extra one.
Yes.
And it's why not?
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things. Why not? And it's not so much that. Once again, and I want to be clear with this, it's not so much that you plan on emptying 2 magazines into a bad guy or you plan on fighting a war, right? It's I have to plan for if the magazine that I have inserted in the gun, what if it goes bad? What if I have a malfunction? Well, one of my processes for dealing malfunction is to get a fresh magazine instead of trying to figure out what's wrong with the first one, right? Have a fresh magazine ready to go. So that's one of the reasons why, I advocate people carrying an extra magazine.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost you anything.
Exactly. Sometimes people, I'm not going to try to tell what to do, but the idea is this. So the moment that we made a decision to carry a weapon and we decide that we want to engage evil with little force, at that point, all the rules are gone. I mean, they will try to kill you no matter what. And what if, why you limit yourself maybe to 6 rounds if you have a little revolver, or even 17 rounds if you have a Glock 17 or similar? The point, for example, I remember there was a story I heard when I was still living in California years ago, when I was a fresh immigrant, and it really shocked me. It was this police officer off duty, and he went to the grocery store, I guess, or to the convenience store with his little baby, a little kid. He has probably a few years old, 4 or 5 years old. And in the middle of this situation, there was a robbery, okay? And this police officer off duty, he had with him just a little revolver, probably a 38, with 5 or 6 rounds. I forgot exactly. The point is, he started to engage 3 bad people. They were having long arms, long weapons, like shotgun or similar. And the moment that, you can go through 6 rounds very quickly. And that's exactly what happened. And then he found himself behind the car with an unloaded weapon, with his little baby that unfortunately was there. And for me, as much as I want to give him a good heart to try to stop evil, I think probably the first thing he should have taken care of was his baby. But more important, he didn't consider that he didn't have enough backup ammunition. So the bad guys, what happened, when they realized that he was without ammo, they just went to him and they shot in the face the baby. That was something 15 years ago or so. I remember the story when I just came here, and I don't know if you've heard, but that day I said, oh my gosh, we really need to bring backup ammo no matter where we are if we decide to bring the gun with us. Listen, I want to give you the floor because, I always ask questions, but probably maybe you have some questions. Maybe you want to say something that we didn't touch. So whatever topic you want to talk about it, I give you the floor, Omari.
Here's the biggest thing for me now, and I've been advocating this whenever I teach, is there's a significant amount of increase of firearms being purchased, right? However, I don't see a significant increase in the amount of people taking training. And I think both go hand in hand, depending on what type of firearms owner you are, right? So if you're a gun owner that buys guns for collection, cool. But if you're a gun owner that buys guns for self-defense, whether it's home defense, whether it's concealed carry, then I believe, attached with the gun should be the investment in training, and not just one training course, but kind of a training plan that you have throughout the year. The season is coming up. The training season around the country seems to start up in the springtime and kind of end in the wintertime. So I just want to advocate people to get out there and train, and not just and do different types of training, right? So we have training like basic medical training, right? How do you plug the gunshot wound? Because you may, in fact, have to fix yourself, right? In the military, we always said, self-aid, then buddy aid, but you always deal with the firefight first. So there's, simple medical training out there. There is training in, the aftermath of shooting. So I know Masada, you has the MAG-20 program, which talks about the law. I mean, a lot of people are advocating for the Second Amendment. A lot of people are advocating for gun rights, but a lot of people don't have no idea what the laws of their state is on handguns, right? Exactly. Or what laws you got to think about after a shooting. Because bottom line, even if it's a good shoot, if the cops walk up and only one party is able to talk, somebody has to be the suspect. Exactly. If the other person's dead, right? So if you're uneducated in what the police are going to do when they show up to a shooting, right, then that can put you in you can go from hero to criminal real quick, just from the lack of knowledge, right? So I want to advocate people to get out there and train and have an actual solid training program, and lastly, document your training. Whether it's in the logbook, I have logbooks going back to like 99 from, even when I was doing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I keep every piece of training that deals with personal defense, I have documented, right? So I think that's important too, to document your training. It's no different than fitness, right? If I want to gauge and actually have data on where I've improved or how I can further improve, then me just going out and spending money on training is not going to help. Me collecting certificates is not going to help. It's like, what did I learn? what skills did I develop? What skills do I need to improve? So I just want people to be more proactive in training. And, for those that reach a point in training where, they actually have a message to give and they want to help, other people train, I think becoming an instructor is a good thing, for those that can teach well and, teach solid programs that are based on not just experience, right? I think training needs to be more based on the data and the science behind it, right? I'm not an advocate of just because, I tell people all the time, don't just train with me because I have 20 years of experience in the military. Mm-hmm. That's the wrong reason to train with me. Train with me because that, I use a blend of my experience and data and good teaching methods to transfer information, because regardless of how good I am, how good I was, or how good I am in my fight has nothing to do with you. What does have something to do is how I transfer that knowledge to you to help you in your fight and make you better, right? So that's pretty much all I have, man. I hope that helps your audience.
Perfect.
Value to your audience.
Omari, I want to thank you again, and I appreciate your time. And guys, you're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna, and that was Omari Broussard. Thank you, Omari. Keep us posted, please, when you do your next class in Arizona. I would like to help you out to promote it, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, don't go away. Ready for our number 3. We're going to talk about love and more information and more news. You're listening to Love, Guns, and Freedom with luca-zanna on United States.FM network. Here we go, guys. This is the final hour. This is the final part of today's show on Love, Guns, and Freedom. Normally I talk about love, but today I really believe I want to use every second of the show to try to share this message. We are really in a state of emergency. I believe that. This is happening now more than ever. What happened in Oregon, I think, is disturbing on many different levels. But more important, I also believe that there were a lot of mistakes that were made by the people that they were involved. Don't get me wrong. I respect everybody who was trying to do something. Okay, I have more respect for people even that make mistakes, but at least they try. If you're all day watching TV, I don't care. I have zero respect for you. But at least if you try, we need to try though to learn from what we made or what people made wrong. And I tell you my humble, short 2-sentence opinion. First of all, I want to tell you, we must go win the heart and mind of people. We are winning this information war. We are really waking up hundreds of thousands of people, I say millions of people around the world, much differently from years ago when people used to laugh at us. This is now becoming more on our side and people being exposed. At the same time, we fall sometimes for the traps that they're trying to launch at us. I've been talking about false flags many times on the show. And sometimes we don't need false flags because we are our own false flag. We create the scenario that it is a false flag. But, instead of me babbling and starting to talk about things, I brought somebody that has been studying, has been articulating what's happening right now with this police state, with this global government taking over for at least the last 30 years. And he's a man that I respect a lot, and I had him on my show several times, and I hope with his help we can articulate to the rest of you guys, even between us, to try to learn from each other what really happened in Burns, Oregon, with the Bundys and with the Lavoy Finicum and with the rest of the movement, and how we can avoid that disasters like that can happen again. Mark Koernke, are you there?
Oh, I'm just right here, sir. And Luca, thank you for having me up.
Thank you very much. At least I know, by the way, I want to thank you again because I know you do a show that it's like, my gosh, how many hours during the day? 6 hours a day you do?
3 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, evening.
Okay, so it's a huge 6 hours commitment every day. And this is for you right now at the end of your day, so you must be tired. Give one more time. Everybody probably already know where you broadcast, but give 1 second the name of your show and how people can listen to it, please.
Well, we've been doing for more than 20 years the Intelligence Report, and we are on libertytreeradio.4mg.com. That's www.libertytreeradio.4mg.com. And we're on themicroeffect.com. And we're also on Indiana Freedom Talk Radio. That's one of our reflectors. We have other reflectors across the country and the world, people that rebroadcast us. So we're quite extensive. We've been watching the progress. We've watched this for decades, and we've seen what are basically replays of actions for lack of experience. And I know that's what you're probably, watching what's happened here. There are two things that we need to put the axe to. We need to put the kibosh to right now. Number one, what we are dealing with is a series of skirmishes or battles. Well, skirmishes and battles only make up really what is a campaign. Campaigns make up what is a war. You don't lose a war in one skirmish, guys. This action that took place, all of them are important because we consider all of our people important. The people that are on the patriot side of this conflict consider everybody valuable. We're here because we love life, because we like people, because we actually prefer liberty, freedom, and enjoying each other's company. We're not the bitter souls that the other side collect, or the wretched creatures that are just, they hate themselves and they hate us, because they hate themselves. Now, because of this, there's a big problem, Luca, that we have to, overcome, and that's the idea that when you're in a war, and if you're in any kind of battle, in fact, if you're in a personal fight, let me ask you something. Do you walk up and make one punch and win?
No, it's never like that, unless in the
movies. Doesn't happen. Well, you'd hope it would.
Yeah, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes
you might get a good smack right in. That happens on occasion, even in boxing, okay? But the bottom line is, you train and you practice for executing certain actions. You have, first of all, the basic buildup of your person, your body. You have to be physically fit. You have to be capable in mind, in spirit, and in body to accomplish something. We've got that, okay? Then we have to come up with a series of routines. In the Asian arts, the kata helps to develop that technique by repetition, and that repetition goes through different styles and through different levels and degrees of expertise. But in the Western martial arts, I just mentioned there's boxing, kickboxing, wrestling. You have a series of moves that you make, guys. These moves, in and of themselves, no single action is the blow. It's a series of blows, a series of actions. Footwork combined with punch, combined with body, combined with breathing. Your mind is, of course, thinking ahead. And it's a series of actions that you develop to become part of a battery of tools that you have in your toolbox. That's the battlefield. That's really how battles work out. One battle leads to another action, which leads to another battle, which leads to another movement, which leads to another battle, and these are smaller actions. The campaign, overall, may involve many different battles, in fact, many different battle fronts. That's the middle picture. And, of course, the big picture is the war itself and leading to your progressive and eventual victory. That must be your goal.
Mark, if I can ask you 1 second something.
Go right ahead.
The way they look at this, I think last year, during the standoff at Bunkersville, I think it was incredible political and also moral victory, and also realistic victory. After all, we show that we the people, we can unite and we can stand together, especially when we have the high moral ground to defend life and property and the Bill of Rights. I think it was great. Now, if I had to look at this, and I think we've been winning also as I said, the hearts and minds of people, because when you see evil, black and white, it is not like anymore gray. You can see what things that are being done badly, like in the middle of the desert, the BLM or wherever they were, these agents last year in Nevada, they were tasing women and, aiming rifles at unarmed people. I mean, that was black and white. It wasn't even anymore about the bandits or their cattle. It was about freedom. So I think that we had a great point there. This year, whenever the event from a peaceful rally that was there organized to try to expose what happened to the Hammonds, out of the blue, I'm going specifically with, for example, Hammond Bundy decided to bottle himself up with few other people in a situation that, first of all, was going to isolate himself in a perfect scenario, like could have been, for example, with in Idaho with Mr. Weaver when he got shot, his wife got killed, murdered, with his little infant. So isolation, no resources. And more important also, even we understand that there was an empty building, wasn't damaged. It's not like in Baltimore, people burning it or destroying it. But in their book, you somehow say infringing on a federal law, all this stuff that now they throw these conspiracy charges or to impede, a federal agent to a federal worker to perform his business. So anyway, you give them the moral ground and the legal ground to come after you full force. I believe that at that point, there was a very inappropriate move that, first of all, there is no position you can take forever. Even the Alamo was a good inspirational move, but it wasn't a strategical move. The idea that we're supposed to be agile. We don't want to identify ourselves. We don't want to be bottled up in a cave. So that's the idea. So I think that right there was the first mistake. What do you think? Am I wrong, or maybe there was something that's done right there?
No. The problem is, well, part of this is the idea that for the longest time, we have forced ourselves into the mindset of defense, of nonstop defense, which is understandable. This was an action where the first part of what really set it in motion was the outrage of the attack on the Hammonds. Double jeopardy has been violated on such a massive level here that I've had conversations a dozen times over that have led to 3- and 4-hour conversations about the law with our people. Myself, I've filed many, many thousands of briefs. I've done a lot of pro se work to the point where the law system disgusts me and nauseates me. This case, I don't know. It's just like what the judge said. The Hammond case in of itself with those two people, they have been beat down like the community has been beat down to the point where they were not willing to properly resist. And in fact, as it's turned out, only because of this mistake or argument of misdirection, how the deployment took place inside the federal facility, the actually a rest area with a couple of maintenance buildings. Let's be honest, that's all it was. In a remote location, isolated. Was designed to draw attention, and what did come out of that is 2 witnesses came forward that otherwise we would not have probably known about, that stated that they were known by the prosecution. The prosecution did not inform the defense that these 2 witnesses were known and that the BLM set the fires that the Hammonds were charged with. They set the other backfires that burned the land that they tried to claim that the Hammonds burned. Now that came out, so it was not a choice or a situation where other people were conferred with regard to the deployment that took place and the taking of the facility. The facility was not stormed. It was walked into. Obviously, there was inside help from people at the BLM because codes and all the information to get into everything were provided to them. So there are people locally, even in the system itself, that don't like what they're seeing. And everybody knows. And what every time they should have been emphasizing is one of the reasons that we're here is because of the Hammonds. The Hammonds should have been mentioned over and over again. Should have been repeated in every sentence. The other part about this, though, is if you're going to perform an action like this, you needed better coordination. This is where what I call the muddy water syndrome sets in. Once you have lack of communication with regard to intent or again operational coordination of any kind, well then there's a lot of people who can find excuses for not participating, and understandably so, because people are at different levels of understanding or education. Now, part of this is that they're still in, and this is I understand where people are at different points. Ammon Bundy, the guys that were there, were talking the peace thing, that we're going to do this peacefully, and they're going to be so awe-inspired by the work, and everybody's going to jump forward. Well, a lot of people were making noise about jumping forward, but the problem is that those people that were talking to them, or I'm sure that were in touch with them, weren't people that actually were going to employ or deploy in any way, shape, or form, or actually provide support. We got a lot of people who make a lot of noise but won't necessarily do anything. The militia elements are prepared to act, but the muddy water condition that was created is what created a lack of focus and a sense of questioning, and understandably so, because of that first level of lack of communication and lack of intent. What will be the purpose for doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Now, other movements throughout the last 30, 40 years since we've been growing up, and you've been around as long as I have done far worse or have done all kinds of things. I mean, we all talk about the Ferguson thing, but I grew up right here around Ann Arbor, Michigan. The FBI office was bombed at least 53, 54 times a year, right here in Ann Arbor. Government buildings were taken over with people with arms. I just pulled some pictures up. The Black Panthers took over a dozen different buildings, and they were all gunned up. And you know what? They walked away each time.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget, you remember that, I think it was just came out in the news recently, former Attorney General Eric Holder, he was part of one of these armed occupations,
And he was armed up, as a matter of fact. In fact, there are pictures of him armed.
Wow, pretty amazing.
Now, so you see, one of the problems we got here, people, is our side are too busy. Now, and I'm not, again, everybody's at different levels, but our problem with our point with our effort, is that aggressive countermeasures to, again, start to take back real estate is something that we aren't really used to doing. And it's something that, either we want it absolute, clean, light, dark. In other words, they're going to shoot at us, they're going to attack, and then we're going to shoot back. There are people that will still be trying to find excuses not to shoot even after we have to shoot. I'm going to warn everybody to be prepared for that. It happened in 1775 the same way. The picture that were painted for the most part of how the war started, there were seven physical conflict incidents that took place before Lexington and Concord.
Mm-hmm.
7 where shots were fired. Hell, the British fired artillery, bayoneted people, pricked them with the bayonet, is how it's mentioned in even the most mild accounts. And yet those actions did not, or were not considered the benchmark for the takeoff point, the kickoff point for conflict.
Like matches, different matches before the fire started. No, I understand what you're saying. My only point is...
that's where we are with this situation. I think that people are... See, the one thing that I think needs to be understood is this still can happen at any time, because people are talking about, they got a list of people they're going to grab.
Uh-huh.
Now, the people who are generating that are, in many cases, people are actually on the other side and not on the Patriot side. And they're trying to scare or terrorize everybody. This is stuff we've seen before. But what I should point out is, and everybody needs to be ready for, is that people aren't going to put up with this anymore. We're at the same point that we were in 1994, 95, which is why the bad guys froze.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in 1995, they planned, before the Oklahoma City bombing, and we've proved this out and I brought this up, and we mapped it out on the air before, and of course the bad guys were scared to death because we knew what their plans were. They were planning mass arrests. They were going to try for mass arrests in January and early February of 1995.
Wow.
And basically, we explained to them, my fault, your fault, anybody's fault, you're dead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, do it. Instead of doing this, oh my God, they're going to... No, what we explained, it was like, yeah, you go ahead and do that and see what happens.
I believe that, according to what I can see, I am here as a newbie because after all, I came to the county in 1998, and honestly, I woke up really after a couple of years after I was here in 2000. I started to learn at least what's going on, just learning. What I see here, they try to really provoke. I mean, I really believe that now what happened in Oregon, part was because, of course, there was some sort of a non-organization or communication, or maybe some sort of a jerk reaction from maybe Ammon and some other people there. But I also believe that there was some sort of, let's say, invitation or some sort of a double people working for the other side try to create this situation because they wanted to, right now, think about the timing. I mean, they did the occupation exactly during the weekend when Obama he was putting out these new executive orders to create gun control and to even justify them. And at the same time, there is a lot of attention towards important things like, finally, even, of course, I don't know what's going to happen with people like Clinton. I mean, finally it seems like we are exposing more and more their crimes. And they don't want to go there and keep talking about this, or at least keep exposing them. Right now, they need to create this sort of almost case for martial law. I mean, I really believe that they are pushing it. Like I believe there were people between in this standoff that they weren't the people they said they were. They were people that they were working for the other side, and they were trying to exasperate it, because I didn't see any type of real end game, positive end game. When you took over their place, you have no food, you have no people, in the middle of the winter, in the middle of nowhere. What do you expect? They're going to come after you and they will show you who's boss. They came with all these armored vehicles with 200 people or 200 more federal agents, and they want now to have an excuse to go after everybody just because we talk about this. I mean, I'm here today on the show specifically because I want to show I'm not afraid to speak. I'm protected by my First Amendment, and I don't care. Because they point now media, people that they were there as media, they've been arrested just because they have their opinion, and maybe they were, cheering for what's going on there or for the people that were part of this type of demonstration. So we are living at this time. People that are getting arrested now just because they were present, or maybe they were there as members of the media. So I think, first of all, we got to talk, but I think they really want to come after us now, and they want to create an excuse. What do you think? What's next?
Well, first of all, remember, the Bundy victory has been a craw in their throat. Two mistakes made. Number one is you never send more than one lieutenant out in a situation. Bundy, Eamon Bundy took one of the brothers with him. Of course, both of them are incarcerated now. From the get-go on this, what my argument has been about supply and support. The Bundy Ranch success is because of a massive amount of cooperation. The first one, where they got the cows back, was a combination of effective militia deployment in spite of muddy water, mass support coming in from many directions because of the attitude and the energy available, because everybody's pissed across the country. Failures on the part of the enemy, too. Lack of coordination on their part. The best laid plans of rats and rodents don't always succeed. They were probably planning for a much more aggressive action when we got the cows back, for instance. It didn't work because the sheriff's department wasn't behind the protesters while the feds were in front. Mm-hmm. And so that lack of coordination is why first the feds were dealt with, and then when the county showed up and they were all milling about on the road, they had to back off. But it was logistics combined with mass that was successful, and everybody stayed focused on being positive. The first part about this deployment is because of lack of coordination. Logistics was not addressed right from the get-go. That's something I totally agree with. That was the biggest problem. Logistics, communications was counting upon an enemy-controlled network with cell phones. And I will repeat again for everybody listening, guys, CB, marine radios. Most people don't even think about marine radios. They're as easy to use as CB, and they're cleaner. They'll broadcast halfway across the state, depending on how flat it is, and you can get a signal out to the end of the planet, just about, depending on how much energy you put behind it. But, 2-meter, 6-meter radio, FRS personal radios, shortwave radio, all of that should have been coming in and should have already been a logical part of the connective process. Operational security, physical security operations. One of the problems I have with this is that, and this is because I've seen it before, paper pushers had the ear of the people who were organizing this. And the paper pushers were telling everybody, they're going to be so awe-inspired with their argument, we have so much power, and we've got this and that they're just going to freeze in their tracks. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen a piece of paper slow down a 30-06 yet.
Yeah.
Okay? In fact, we pop them on the range all day. So you can hold that piece of paper up, but if you don't have the arse to back it up, the bad guys will move with reckless abandon. Now, as far as pulling the thing or playing the thing out, the bad guys, I believe, were stretching it out because they weren't getting out of it what perhaps they thought they could once they saw that it was in motion. Now, there's arrogance on both sides. The administrative people that you're dealing with that probably got Eamon Bundy tied up in this, they're still out and about, some of them. Okay, many of them, as a matter of fact, because they weren't really never on site, per se. They were around. And so because they listened to this, when they traveled, they were allowed to travel unimpeded for several days, as a matter of fact. Well, the more that first of all, right from the get-go, in order for you to be successful, you take a policy of OPSEC, of operational security, from the get-go, so you're in the niche, you're in the groove, you're in the program. When you travel, you have security constantly. Front vehicle and back vehicles for picket, always in place. The ambush where Lavoie was killed is a classic example of all the things that, should not have been done that were done. And that, of course, led to the demise of a person that I believe they were specifically there to kill. I don't care about all the other arguments.
Mm-hmm.
The end result is that one of the most studious of all the people in that convoy, the one with the most experience and that had done the most damage to the feds because of success in the courts and at home, was Lavoie.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest were secondary players by comparison. And who did they kill?
Let me tell you exactly. I interviewed Lavoie in September in Mojave County, and I have this interview on YouTube, and we were talking exactly about its case. You know, he had a very strong case. He wanted. He wanted. He was already stopped paying the grazing fees, the grazing rights, whatever you want to call them, to the BLM, but he wanted to pay him to the county. So it was created. He talked to the sheriff, he talked to the county supervisors, and I think he had a very good opportunity also being backed up by the local people, that would have been very dangerous if that would have happened, to spread around the states, the different counties of the states. So I think, I really believe that was another part of they wanted him out, because they knew when he was coming back home, he had a great opportunity to fight this even legally, to fight this at local level with the support of the people. So I really believe, unfortunately, Lavoie, he was murdered. And that's, you can see the video very well. I mean, it's not even about opinions. I mean, a man is surrendering. And what did he do, really? Okay, let's say he trespassed, okay? You shoot somebody in the head because he trespassed? I mean, that's insane. If any other law enforcement does that, probably or even anybody would go to jail for at least manslaughter. I mean, that's insane, okay? So my question is, do you think, because I heard a lot of voices, and I don't like to believe voices, I like to see facts, but now it's becoming more and more recurrent, that they weren't just regular state troopers, they were even just regular FBI agents. It seems like among the 200 or 250 agents that they've been deployed there were also some mercenaries. Do you have any type of input or other news to back up this?
Well, I agree that as we've typically seen, we saw this at Waco. Should remember that there were 3 different nations in addition to U.S. forces at Waco. This situation is no different on the West Coast and through the country. Both the fusion centers, Homeland Security, and regional police are a combination of local hired police. That's part of this MJTF and JTF I've talked about for years. JTTF is what they're using also. But that even includes private mercenary forces, external foreign forces, federal, state, and local. I believe the state cops are there because I'll say again, each state police department has a hit squad / a murder team in it. We have one. It's in the SRT in Michigan. The Michigan State Police is where the dirty creatures are there. Arizona has it. Every state does. They're part of a little clique. Prisons have the same kind of thing. There are people in prisons that beat prisoners to death. It's just like the mob. They're on standby, and they beat people to death or they torture people to death. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's what you had there. You had the feds. You had the Fed, whoever they were having to support them in the way of personnel, as far as at tag-alongs, mercenaries, some other JTF element, and you had the state police. But they're all in the same clique together. This is like an inner circle, the inner element. And the most important thing here is this could all have been avoided. Let's get some solution, not just complaining about problem here.
Yes.
Number 1, when traveling, picket car front, picket car to the rear. Should be far to the front and easily able to identify, especially in a remote location like that, any unusual traffic activity. If there was anything on those secondary roads, which, by the way, typically are not plowed because that is a very remote area, then that's a flag. Seeing vehicles parked along the road, or eventually seeing the first of the vehicles that are, say, in the outer area of control, means that the whole column stops, the whole column turns around and leaves. But here's the thing that all the surviving witnesses said, the girls. The other one, I hope you'll notice, the male that was the first person they let go.
Yeah.
Have you noticed how he's disappeared?
Yes, weird, huh?
Where'd he go?
That's a good question.
Okay, he appeared out of nowhere. He gave virtually a speech that was written. If you look, the character that tried to tell you that everybody did, he virtually repeated what the government told him to, well, actually what the government said to the news media.
Yes.
And then he had to say he didn't see any of it. If you look, he was reading off of the computer.
Yes.
He only looked up at the computer screen once. If you zoom in on his eyes are tracking and reading a statement.
Yes.
He's disappeared, but the two women are credible and relatively intelligent. In fact, they did a very good job, considering the situation they were in, of reporting facts. Well, the bottom line is, while they were inbound, their phones went off. All of their phones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the witnesses stated this, if you pay attention. So, guys, the cell phones, don't counter them. Use them as an add-on. In other words, for as long as they run, figure you'll use them. But remember that they are totally controlled by the adversary, by the other side. Now, one of the things to do is make sure you constantly have 1 or 2 cell phones running with the Scout front and the Scout rear, and they don't have to be hooked to anything up other than just, a constant music feed or something away from the area. If they go off, it's because of the shunting technology that was deployed with the field unit there in the ambush area. The ambush area has a null broadcast. They're pirating up all the 800 signal, and they're shutting it off. They're knocking it down. It doesn't get away. It's like a mini portable cell tower, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Everybody's heard about these. Well, they're nothing new. They're as old as radio, okay? So as soon as the cell phones go off, bingo, kids, you got a problem. Now, if you have a car a half mile or a mile full ahead of everybody else, then they should be talking via CB, Marine Channel, FRS, whatever other radio technology is local radio, and immediately if something happens, then they give the signal. If nothing else, they stop, and they immediately back out of the area of activity, turn and move towards the main body that you're protecting. Signal with lights, whatever you have to do. You can use laser, but the idea is to stop the column and turn it around. Move away from the contact point. Now, you may still have a mobile threat, but remember, you've just changed it from a kill zone event, which you've seen this. One beautiful thing about this, it's bad. This is a bad situation. But one beautiful thing, guys, they gave you an aerial view of their activity.
That's true. That's very true.
I hope you're all using it. I hope everybody's debriefing people and explaining, now, what would we do under these conditions? Well, first of all, we don't get into the kill zone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Remember that. Don't get into the kill zone. The way you do that, your picket cars need to be lighter, faster, lightly armored if you could. Pickup trucks that are a little better, a little squared away. You could use them as dam busters too, and go the other direction. Go with an 8-foot bed, crew cab, biggest 3/4-ton, pickup truck you've got in the fleet with a push bumper, and radio it up. The crew cab means you can put the radio gear in the back, away from the front seat where the driver and the other observer are. And you can stay in touch. You're up there in the front as the picket. Whichever you choose to do, it has to have all the radio equipment to get hold of everybody else to the rear. Here's another thing. Radio communications to your base of operations, which means a major separate radio net, separate from whatever else you're using for your travel convoy use, either a different frequency and preferably a different radio, to call out immediately that contact has been made. That way the message gets out. They're not in a vacuum. You're not caught off guard. Now, the problem with what happened is and this is where we get into are we in a battlefield situation yet? Or do we think, or have we talked ourselves into the idea that we're like Gandhi and we'll be peaceful and the other side will be nice and they'll be so awe-inspired with our peacefulness that they don't do anything? Well, they killed Lavoie, and he was doing the peaceful thing, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's one part of lesson I learned, I tell you, that for me was the most disturbing things, but also reality check. These people, they're here to kill. No, they seriously, they knew very well. This man, first of all, it was a setup. We know about the semi-automatic. Lavoie, I talked with several people. He never even knows how to use a semi-automatic. Only had some revolvers. So we know very well. And the video, even if it's, of course, they don't release yet, we want to see the camera that were on the ground. But even just watching this video from the drones, everybody can see very well. This man was shot the first moment that he got out of the car. Okay, and for a moment he was bending over because they shoot you in the belly. Yeah, it's normal, but they murder him. So that for me was devastating to understand now. Wherever are these devils that they act like law enforcement? For me, that's worse than the criminals, because at least the criminals you have a fair, you can shoot back. And instead with these people they think they are the authority of God, and they're going around. And they kill you cold blood. So I think it was very, very serious. And I hope we can learn from that. I'm very saddened, but that was what we can see. It's very tragic reality, but he was murdered cold blood, and he was surrendering. So everybody can do their own deduction. I'm not telling people what to do, what to say, but this is the reality, what happened to this poor man. Go ahead, Mark, please.
Well, one of the things, okay, first of all, real quick here, again, precautionary travel is most important. Don't get lulled into a sense of comfort, especially when you're in a deployment situation. I don't care what it is. It may be training. See, training exercises. Let me give you an example. Why is it we're going to a training exercise? Why aren't we taking it seriously? Every element, every minute of what you're participating in a training operation should not be any kind of, giggle, ha-ha, or fooling around or taking it semi-seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
Practice what you preach. That's the first rule. Practice, practice, practice. That way it becomes second nature, especially signal communications. Now, if that had happened, they would have completely avoided that particular part of whatever was planned for that night. In fact, it was the most critical event, which was their benchmark for what they considered the watershed towards a counter-strike against everything that was going on up there. Having foiled that, but being able to detect it, would have changed completely the battlefield or their options. So this is why, again, no matter what we're doing, we're protecting the core. If you have a bunch of people and they're going to be moved, this could be casualties, this could be wounded, this could be family members in an evacuation situation. Guys, think of all the other things that could be in the center there. In this case, it was Ammon Bundy, and the girls, and Lavoie, and whatever, and other people, a lot of other people. That core should not have been traveling on its own. I would point out, too, that had... See, here's the part where Mark is going to be really explain to you what kind of hard mean you're going to have to be. I want you to watch where they stopped his truck. Lavoie was being too nice. You want to know why? I want you to take a look. When that one skank ran from where the roadblock, where he was behind the truck, he ran in front of Lavoie, and Lavoie avoided him, which is why the truck bogged down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you look at that carefully. Had he done, and I'm going to tell you, I was trained as an offensive driver. I know exactly what his intent was, and he would have succeeded. He could have slid along the side of those vehicles and would have still been able to get back on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was nice, that character was able to put bullets in the vehicle in the kill zone and, of course, help to shoot Lavoie. Now, instead, if it had been me, I'd have put that fool right under the truck and dragged him 100 yards under until he was 3 inches thinner, and he just slid off from underneath my catalytic converter. Because if he had not pulled off the way he did, the roadblock would have been ineffective, and he would have been out of that kill zone where the planned fires and multiple shooters were located. You take a look at that. Now, evaluate it and look at the distances. Take a look at how he turned the wheel to avoid that character. And because of that, now I'm just saying in general, I'm talking about, guys, your life's threatened. They've already fired. Here's the other part, and we have to really emphasize this. Guys, there's 3 minutes worth of video missing from the video that they did. Why?
Exactly. Right? They were shooting on the side.
There's 3 minutes. There's 3 minutes missing at the beginning because that's where the Payne got out of the vehicle. Where originally they shot at them.
Yes.
They already were being shot at, and they'd had to edit that out, and nobody's focusing on that. That needs to be the emphasis. You're in the truck. You put your hands out the window. Hey, we got women in here. Bow, 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 bow. What are you going to do? Figure they're going to stop shooting?
No, unfortunately, it is very true. And people don't know it because they
took it out of the video.
Yeah, but you can see anyway. You can see when they are trapped into the car. You can see on the right side of the car, there were bullets flying all over the side of the truck. I mean,
well, I'm talking about, this is at the very beginning where he takes off and goes down the road.
Yeah.
There's 3 minutes missing, and it's not the very beginning of the long version, but where they're stopped. There's 3 minutes it disappears. Well, I would point out, how did Brian Payne get out of the car?
Yeah.
He got out of the car there, and that's where they grabbed him. In fact, tonight, a still picture from another direction shows him where they got him on his knees handcuffed.
Yes.
Okay, we're in the vehicle. Lavoie is gone with the truck already. Okay? So what we have is a situation where they wanted to make it look like, he just drove off for the fun of it. He just went crazy. And that's what we need to emphasize from our side. Because, again, the timeline shows you there's 3 minutes and some odd seconds missing. What happened in that long stretch of 3 minutes? Well, they were fired upon. They shouted out to everybody, we got women in the car, there's women in here, let the women out, let the women out. They put their hands out, Payne put his hands out, they shot at him.
Yeah.
So then he got out of the vehicle and was moving towards them. What they don't want to see, they don't want anybody to see is, how did Payne move towards them? Did they focus on him to the point where, again, they fired on him, they hit him with something? Nobody's been able to talk to him. And they don't want anybody to see that, they were just, I don't care if they say they were using rubber bullets, bean bags, ballistic nuclear devices, doesn't make any difference. What are you hearing? Bow, 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 bow. What do you get in the air? Crack, crack, crack. What are you seeing bouncing out the side of your window? Bullets.
No, this is amazing. This is very true. And I tell you, I want to I want to try to reach out people that they are maybe thinking that I'm crazy or Mark, you're crazy, because we need everybody here. I don't want you to think, we need to unite as Americans, because even I hate when I see people on the other side, or whatever side they want to call themselves, because just they don't like what the band is, or maybe what people that believes in property rights. Tomorrow, guys, they will come for you. Tomorrow they will come for your beliefs, and nobody deserves to be executed. If we still believe that we live under rule of law, under a constitution, we deserve due process. This was completely an execution. I don't even think they do in China do this stuff. At least they give you a funny trial, okay? And that's my point, I don't want to focus anymore about why they were there. Now I want to focus. They executed a man that was surrendering. They were shooting cold blood at people that were traveling on a highway. That's the bottom line. And I want to remind everybody this keyword, because I tell you, you need to see what our government was supposed to be our government has been doing in the past to understand what they're doing today. Ruby Ridge. I was even in the country. It was still when I was in Italy. But I tell you, when you see that the U.S. government was forced to pay for a lawsuit after they murdered the wife of Randy Weaver, Vicky, that she was holding a little baby, a little daughter, okay, in her arms, and she was shot cold blood by that piece of crap called Lori Oriuoki, whatever is his name, with a round between her eyes. I mean, that's right there shows you what type of cold blood-minded criminals they are. That's what
Lon Hariuchi's father was a Japanese war criminal.
Wow.
He was responsible for the execution of American POWs during World War II.
I didn't know that.
He was brought into the United States. In fact, he was notorious for castrating prisoners.
Oh, my God. I didn't know that. Amazing.
That's Lon Hariuchi's father.
Yeah, I think the DNA doesn't go that far away,
Well, I think he was around Dad enough that, he had to be around at some point with Dad, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I say. So I tell you, this is real. This is not just anymore. Unfortunately, if they had a chance to operate in complete impunity, look at this now. They done this in front of everybody with a recording, even if it's, from a high point of view, but still pretty clear. They murdered this man. What are we going to do? Seriously, I think their challenge is, Mark, they try to provoke us, because I tell you, for me, it is like a complete cold blood murdering. And I tell you, they want to see what type of response the American people. I hope we can keep some sort of, I don't want to say coolness, but I don't want we fall for their traps. Because I think they're trying to provoke us some way, because that's the only way I see why they released this video. Why do you think they released this video?
Well, the idea was to create fear. Their logic is, from their side, is to create fear. Everybody pees their pants, and everybody. This is what they were doing when they did Waco.
Yeah.
It's just a mini variation. Waco, that's why they had the tanks and the helicopters and everything come right down to where the thing was burning for photo ops, and so they could try to terrorize the population, which everybody got pissed. In this case, I would remind everybody again, even where we're picking through, we're taking time on. It takes longer to describe than it happened, which is true of even when you're in a trial. It's nauseous when you're in a trial, because they try to pick apart every second of what was going on in situations that are happening so fast you have to either save yourself or die. It's a battle, though. This is just one skirmish. These are just single skirmishes. They're important, but I'm sorry, guys, this is not the end of anything. In fact, it's part of what is an ongoing aspect or epic. The American War for Independence lasted 8 years. What do you think happened in 13 colonies? How many? See, we only get bits and pieces when we even read books. Why? There were 13 colonies. War was there every day. Somebody was killing somebody. We didn't win every battle. We didn't lose every battle. We also had a lot of ties. And that's most important to remember, is that there are situations where you go in and you fight each other, and the first rule is know how to extract yourself in the event you fail, and that happens. We went in Vietnam. There's a lot of guys that didn't come back. Why? Well, sometimes they caught an unlucky bullet. Otherwise, they were the units that lost.
Mark, don't you
Nobody
think...
wants to talk about that. They got overrun, they got wiped out, they lost. And they lost big time, which is why they only do selective histories when they talk about Vietnam.
Mark.
In fact, even when they did the movie Once We Were Soldiers, guys, that unit had one of the worst casualty hits of the whole war, and it's not even in that movie. You know why? Because it was so disheartening and so destructive that the unit itself was almost annihilated.
Yeah, I remember the movie. I watched that. Yeah,
that's not the movie. That's the other epic of that unit. You know, see, so the most important thing about this is attitude. Understand, it's life. You're going to have to roll with the punches. We should learn from this. There were mistakes that were made. The muddy water syndrome has to do with communications, the lack of, or the assumption that things were just going to show up because, well, it happened before. I don't know how that came into play that they thought that. You know, I've talked about this forever. Resupply doesn't happen. First, there is supply. When everybody goes into a situation like that, you go in heavy. Why? Well, because of what you plan on doing, you may get cut off immediately. So what do you have to work with?
I have another angle. Maybe call me the most prudent angle. Maybe, I don't know. I think, first of all, every community should start to organize right now. And I don't think it's something that for people to travel 2 or 3 states and overstand and leave their family behind. I think right there we have a little problem. I mean, after all, if somebody wants to be free, they need to start to stand up for their freedom too. Yeah, we want to help. We are Americans, no matter which state that you're from. But at the same time, if you go in an area that 50% of the population work for the federal government and they don't even want to talk about these things, I think it's time to maybe organize your own community where you live and be prepared, because no matter what, they will come after us. The point is they're already coming after us. So that's number one. I think overstretching and going in territories that you don't have the numbers, you don't have the people.
Don't have the power base.
Yeah, that's right there. It's dangerous. Out of their books, Mao Zedong, guerrilla warfare, you must have the support of the population. These people, they're a bunch of slaves. They don't want to be involved in this stuff. And then also another thing. Go ahead, please.
Well, I was going to say there's a percentage, but here's the thing. Like I said, Grant County, see the difference between Harmon County and Grant County. Grant County has a constitutional sheriff that's actually speaking up against everything that's been going on. He even put it on paper.
Yes.
The character that's the sheriff of Harney County is a bought and paid for prostitute. He was the original, he was the BLM agent that fabricated all the stuff against the Hammonds.
Wow.
He is the agent. He is witness number 9.
Yeah. That's
in the
true.
Hammond case.
Wow, amazing.
And he's not an elected sheriff. He was assigned. Not only that, but it's like in good old communist Russia. After the communists, when they first take over, they build up all these bureaucracies. Then, progressively, they start killing off their competition, or they bump them out of the job, and they take their title. And the bigger the longer communism is in place, the more titles a character has in their on their shoulder.
Yeah.
Well, the judge there has 14 different positions that he holds in the community.
Wow.
The sheriff holds 4 different positions in the community, and he was not elected. The other sheriff retired, so the judge put his BLM butt buddy in there, and that's how he got to be sheriff.
Yeah, I mean, right there, you have situation that I really believe that you start to put yourself on a scenario that it's almost start to win. And I'm not talking just physically. I'm talking about even with information, even just conquering the hearts and minds. I mean, after all, if they come after, let's say, when happened with the bandits after their ranches and their cattle and beating them up and all this stuff, that was black and white all over the states. The majority of the American people say, "What are you doing?" Pointing, loaded guns at American people. They cannot even point guns at Mexicans crossing illegally the borders. I mean, the BLM can do that. I mean, not even the freaking border patrols, but they were pointing at us. Right there was clear. Now we go in a situation instead that I think we should pretty much be prepared. Instead of wasting energy and time and lives to go somewhere else, we need to organize our community now, because I believe what's happening, Mark, in the next few months, I'm not even talking that far, There are too many signs that things are happening. Did you hear about, for example, have Chinese troops in New York State training officially? This is out of the New York Times, also the New American. Communist Chinese troops on U.S. soil for exchange mission, training with our U.S. Army. I mean, it never happened that we had them on our land, And, I mean, after all, we have Obama still in the White House. And now he has this international martial law authority given by the Senate that he can pretty much deploy the army all over the world, U.S. included, just because the excuse of terrorism. That, like in this case, domestic terrorism, all you have to do, they call you domestic terrorist, and you can have the army now after you. So don't you think they are setting us up for this situation of martial law with foreign troops that we've been talking all these years?
Well, actually, you're right on the money as far as what they're going to try to do. I think that they would have done this a year and a half ago. I think the whole thing with the Bundy Ranch was, I've said before, was the original mission.
Mm-hmm.
We would have been, right now, we would have already seen the Red River fall. All the rest of the ranches and all the other targets in all the different states would have been achieved. And in their mind, I'm talking about what they were thinking about doing. Bundy Ranch was the alpha point. The culmination of all the attacks across the country, which would have been a combination, they had to have used mercenaries. They had to have, in fact, they did. They acknowledged that. Would have ended in their a major campaign to grab the largest chunk of real estate headed east, and that would have been the Red River. Now, Texas knows more about that now, and there's been some publicity on it. But that basic campaign has still been in play. It's just now askew, and that's because of the Patriot effort. Otherwise, they're like I said earlier, the best laid plans of rats and rodents to try and get something going or to try and get it there in their camp. Over and over they failed, and now they're to the point where everything is in a log jam. And this is just exactly what happened to the King of England in 1774. The King of England, by the way, said he wanted the war. He actually said, oh, yeah, there'll be just some peasant hostilities, and they'll go out and they'll mow down the peasants that have the pitchforks. He was so isolated, he felt that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
And 8 years later, after we started the war on April 19th, 1775, with regard to the official kickoff, the rest is history, as they say. Right now, they think, or some of them do, think they want it. Others, anybody who realistically has to be the one that goes out to execute this, now, they're puffing them up with like this action where they all came out in this big column and they had this big show of force. You know what? It wasn't really a big show of force. If you pay attention, go back through all the videos, and many of those SUVs had one man in them.
Mm-hmm.
They cleared out the motor pool, put everybody in as many vehicles as they could to make it look big.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean it isn't dangerous.
No, it's true, but I think it was
remember,
psychologically.
But that propaganda is something we need to stomp on right away, too. They die just like anybody else. In fact, there's fewer of them that need to die, and they run out of secret police.
Yeah,
Alexander Solzhenitsyn repeated that many times, how we burned in the camps.
Exactly, and this is exactly what I want to talk. I'm a very peaceful person, and I know most of us, we want peace. We want to be living free. We want to live with our families. There is a point, though. We must remember where we are right now in America, 2016. We are under National Defense Authorization Act, with the clause of indefinite detention, no due process, just because our First Amendment, Mark, just because we are talking. We don't even need to do anything. Just because we are talking, we can be declared enemy combatants, we can be declared terrorists, and we can be going to a gulag, not even anymore into a jail or a prison, but like in the dungeon, and disappear indefinitely. This is where we are. And now we've seen what happened to a man that was really, I tell you, Lavoie, you can call him whatever you want. You can call him maybe naive. You can call him maybe somebody, whatever you want to say. But he was a peaceful guy. You can see his action. You can see his speeches. The guy he wouldn't harm an ant, okay? And I tell you, and he was cold-blooded, murdered. Now, when we understand that, I think we need to realize that we are next. I tell you honestly, I see that there was Santilli was, even I'm not a fan of him, but he was now he's rotting in jail. He used to be with all of these guys in freaking 23 hours complete isolation. I mean, not even a murderer gets 23 hours isolation. That's something unbelievable. Okay, and charges that they make you understand that they can throw at you everything they want right now. So I tell you, we must start to understand that we may start to disappear. And we must make a choice now. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I mean, I can tell you what to do. I cannot tell other people what to do, but we must understand what they want to do and what they've been done what we've been doing to us. So, Mark, I want just to share with you this. You tell me what you think about it, because I think we are coming to this point. I really believe we are getting at this point right now.
Oh, yeah. The bad guys are just kind of like the Wicked Witch of the West. They're trying to figure out how they can approach it, and every time they come at it from a different angle, it still comes down to whatever freedom I have, I'm going to have to defend it with arms. And again, we don't. You notice we're not screaming about this. We're not shouting about this.
Mm-hmm.
The founding fathers had to deal with the same thing. The discussions that we're all having are the discussions that were had in actually from 1765 to 1775. Most everybody in the Patriot movement in 1765 was sure that the American War for Independence, or at least a major revolt, would start in 1765. It took 10 more years, and we're way past that as far as I'm concerned. We're in the later stage, more in line with the 1774 to 75 window. The bad guys have to come out. They're wagging their weenie in everybody's face. They have to try for bigger occupation. The Crown is demanding more land, more property. They want to steal things. They want a myriad of officers and offices. They already have them to eat out your substance. It's like they're using the Declaration of Independence as a checklist. Now, they're going to try. And the attitude I see, and I see this everywhere, young and old, is everybody is just tired of them. And the other thing that people are not doing, they're not really worried about debating with the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the one thing that you see they're figuring, well, they're not hearing. Well, they have to be hearing it, listening to the phones. People are pissed. The thing we need to continue to remind everybody is, guys, we don't control the money. We don't control the bankers. We're not trying to take you overseas into a foreign war you have no business getting into. We're not going to steal your property. There's nothing you have that I am interested in because I have my property. And reason I'm in this is because I have a common liberty interest, and I believe that I have a right to what I own and to my life's time. Now, the other side, they're control freaks. They're into this, they must own everything, or they like to take from you what you have. These are all justifiable reasons for defending yourself and waging effective war against an enemy that otherwise plans on murdering you.
Yeah.
And it can be slow or fast, but it's an unjust taking of time.
Yeah,
and we're way past it. I mean, we really.
No, I agree with you. List. If we go through the list, if you go through the list, as you said, of the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers probably they are throwing up. I mean, come on, how long did you let this happen? And it's sad because we would have stopped that probably 70, 80 years ago peacefully. When people start to understand 1913, we were taken over by a private cartel of bankers. We should have stopped it there. But regardless, now we are where we are. And I tell you one thing, though, if this is my humble, probably 2 cents opinion. I think we should now, every one of us that we've been vocal, we are vocal, we show our beliefs. We don't need to give them any opportunity, any excuse, because all they're looking now is for excuses to legitimize their criminal actions. And we always want to have the moral ground. For example, I don't say that we need to weigh them in our homes because we already lost. If we are at our homes, it's already too late. But the point is, we don't want to go in their traps. We don't want to go there on their ground. We don't want to go there where they set the rules. We set the rules. For example, you come in our counties, you come here without a warrant, you come here, try to confiscate people's property. I hope our sheriff will be with us. If it's not, we will be with each other. And at that point, I think it's black and white. We have the moral ground to defend ourselves. But when you start to cross state lines, you start to go on properties, even supposed to be our property, because after all, I don't understand why every time it's federal, there is no more Bill of Rights, belongs to them. But regardless, that's the kind of this little magic land. Let's not go there. Let's stay where we are, on our state or county properties, and let them come to us, and let them make black and white who the bad people are. Don't you think maybe that's the time to play not defensive, but at the same time steady, but don't fall for their traps? Mark, one more time, give your website, and I give you the floor the last 60 seconds, whatever you want to say.
Very good. Again, www.libertytreeradio.4mg.com. That's libertytreeradio.4mg.com. Guys, Luca's got the right idea. We have to come together. We have to act intelligently. We are the thinkers. We also need to respond, not react. It should be a matter of standard operating procedure, but you need to develop communications. You need to develop operational security. You must be disciplined as adults in the process of waging effective war and defending yourselves for the sake of liberty and freedom. We have a mutual liberty interest, okay? Everybody out there, we're on the same page. Everybody has a few different ideas. You know what? There's 48 states. You're going to be real busy out there, and I may never see you. We may never see each other again for 6, 7, 8 years, guys. We'll be too busy in our own neck of the woods dealing with our problems. Get ready and be prepared to do just exactly that.
Thank you, Mark. You're always an inspiration. I always appreciate your time and your friendship.